Good morning, everybody. Hello, hello. All right. Good morning. And so it begins. Happy Tuesday. Hello, hello. All right. Wait, I'm here, right? Yeah. YouTube looked like for a second like it was telling me I wasn't here or something. But I'm here and I'm queer. All right. So before we begin, over on my podcast channel, if you guys haven't seen, my video is doing really well. I mean, guys, my podcast channel gets views, let me tell you, which is like, it's great. I love it. I'm going to link the channel in the chat. I'm really grateful that my podcast channel gets views. Like, that's really great. I work really hard on those videos, as you guys know. I'm mostly always putting them up very late, but that's because I am, taking forever to edit everything and gather everything. But my last video got, the yellow demonetization tag, which means it's partially monetized. So I get some money on 30,000 views. I made a little less than $100. So yay, that puts into context just like how it all works out, but that's okay. It is what it is. And I learned today from another YouTuber. We're going to watch one of her videos today. You probably know her, Not the Good Girl. We've watched her videos in the past. She said that on her video, where she has been demonetized as well, you can't hype the video up for that reason. And that makes sense because everybody was asking me why they couldn't hype my last podcast. I guess that's why. That makes so much sense because I was like, why can't people hype the video? I couldn't figure out what I did wrong. And apparently it's like, if the video is also demonetized and it's censored, then YouTube doesn't want to push it out because it's not ad friendly. Because remember, at the end of the day, they will suppress our videos if they are not ad friendly. That's why a lot of people that's like a form of censorship in a big way, right? And that's why it's so frustrating. Because we want to talk about these things. We want to use the words. We want to, have the adult conversations. But if we do, then we might lose our jobs because we won't be able to sustain ourselves. Like, it does take a lot of time and effort and hours go into making everything. And so we have to pick and choose the battle of like paying rent or, that's why, it's always kind of a big deal when people do end up making their platform political. Because as much as political sounds like a good money-making thing, and it can be, it's also really difficult not to get suppressed unless you're a really, really big person, unless you're really, really popular, With that said, thank you for all who watched that podcast. I was really proud of it, and again, it's getting great views. Like, people really like the podcast channel, and I'm happy to put in the work because I think it's worth it. With that said, today we're going to talk about the news. Let's go over some stories that happened this week. I came across this TikToker on my feed, and I don't know who he is. He almost looks like he'd be on Pod Save America, but I don't watch Pod Save America because, too liberal for me. Is he from Pod Save America? Who is this man? This is apparently an author, like a New York Times bestselling author. His name is Ryan Holiday. Has this guy come across your feed?
You don't like what's happening in the world that disgusts you, feel a little bit powerless? Well, here are some books you should read if you want to fight back and make a difference.
Pause. Thank you, chat, for saying you love the hairdo. Appreciate that. He came across my feed. Yeah, he's a stoicism guy, right? I'm a philosophy girl. I hate him. I got the ick from this guy moment he started throwing around. The moment I hear stoicism from a white man, I go, And I was right. And I was right. And I was like, I sat there. I was like, see, listen, not to be autistic, but the pattern, I saw the pattern and I said, I do not like this man. Okay. So I sat there and I said, Brittany, check your bias, check your prejudice. Cause we all have problems and we see this white man who's a New York Times bestseller who's talking about stoicism and we're coming to conclusions about him. Think about it. Hold on. Right? So then I'm watching him and I'm like, why don't I like this man? Okay. You tell me why I don't like this man, right here.
If you don't like what's happening in the world that disgusts you, feel a little bit powerless, well, here are some books you should read if you want to fight back and make a difference. This is a book about how one single person can change the world. Hope in the Dark by Rebecca Solnit. This is a great book. Everyone should read this. Barry Weiss's How to Fight Anti-Semitism. Another
Barry Weiss recommendation.
horrible thing happening in the world that you can do something about. This is going to be a controversial one, but I think more people should read The 48 Laws of Power.
48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene.
If more people had read The 48 Laws of Power, maybe the left would be a little more effective at wielding power.
He said maybe the left would be better at wielding power if they read a fucking book by a fucking narcissistic little egomaniac. Are you so fucking for real right now? I almost spilled my coffee this morning seeing this TikTok.
We wouldn't be in this mess that we're in. More people should read Abundance because it
By
explains
Ezra Klein. Girl, sit down.
in many ways why people are so
Listen to me when I say this. All books are good books, even bad books, just like all trips are good trips, even bad trips. But know a bad trip from a good trip. Know a bad book from a good book. And this is why when people go, Brittany, what book should I read? Read all the books. As a person who's read thousands of books, read all of the books and know the difference. You do have to read a lot of bad books to know they're bad books, but just because they're a New York Times bestselling author doesn't mean they're good. And that's the problem. Everyone tries to get on the New York Times bestseller list and then kind of like say that must give me some sort of credibility. That's why I say be careful of the people seeking credibility in a world that gives credibility to the worst people in the world. Be careful of who is popular. Be careful of who's on the list. Be careful of who, because it is seldom, very good writers who make it to these things, though they do. They absolutely do. A lot of the people that he has mentioned here are liberals or in my opinion, just capitalists, in my opinion, like philosophically evil. So read the books, but be aware. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I knew watching this guy, I'd only seen a few of his TikToks and I was like, once I see a certain type of demographic talking about stoicism, I just know they have a deep misunderstanding of it. This is a deep misunderstanding in a big way. To me, what ultimately is the overall, maybe because I don't always see stoicism just through a Western lens, I try to incorporate that Eastern lens into stoicism. And even though you can read meditations and you can come away with understanding that that is an evil man right there, you can also understand that there is a lot of wisdom in evil men. And that is the hard issue, is like they're still evil, but I can see the wisdom, not because they're evil though. The wisdom doesn't come from their evil. It comes from the fact that human beings are both good and evil. And so there's this idea that we have that that's why I don't like recommending people, because it sounds like I'm saying this is a good person. I don't think most people are good. I certainly don't think most famous people are good. I think it's very hard to be a good person. Okay? Like, I think it's incredibly difficult to be a good person. So I do get a little bit more cautious and like recommending things to people, because again, I don't want to have to be, I don't want it to be, well, Brittany recommends it. Brittany doesn't do nothing. I'm not putting my stamp of approval on anybody. I'm just saying that, like, I can see the value in this work, but not that the world wouldn't be better if the work didn't exist. Like, in a lot of ways, the world would be better if a lot of our work didn't exist. Hell, I think for the first, 10 years of my YouTube career, the world would have been a better place if it didn't exist. But that's the price we pay for figuring ourselves out, is we put out a lot of bad content. We put out a lot of bad writing. We put out a lot of bad messages until we find the right ones. So, be careful of who comes across your feed looking professional, and it's okay to feel a little icked out when you see guys like this come across your feed and they seem like, they might know what they're talking about. Look at him here.
Power over our thoughts is the only path to happiness. Because if happiness is dependent on things going well, or going the way that you want them to go, if happiness is dependent on getting what you want, whether that's success, or that's the plane being on time, or the economy being good, or political environment being functional, if your happiness is dependent on externals, the Stoics would say, you better hope you get lucky. And you're probably not going to get lucky.
Why was I even muted? Who even, what was this? Why did I even mute myself? Listen, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was going to say, moving into 2026, I am exhausted at white men talking about stoicism because they just have the most shallow reading of it, period. Also, Discord said he's a protege of Robert Greene, which makes a lot of sense. Chaz's self-censorship. Literally, I self-censored myself just for the sake of humanity. I just think that this man and men like him are so... if they're just in it for their own ego, it's very frustrating to me. It's like, you're not even serious. Like, please be serious. For once, we need to be serious. Like, a lot of serious things are happening. Honestly, I was talking to my buddy today about Jon Stewart's recent coverage of Alex's death, Alex Preety. And yeah, I'm just not like in a laughing mood. You know, Jon Stewart for me was a little too jokey talking about Alex's death. And, you know, I think there's just something to be said about the way people are handling this coverage. I know people keep talking about Jon Stewart running for the presidency. Guys, please focus. Focus. Like, I don't know why people just want their favorite celebrities to be the president. I don't know why that happens to our brains, where we're just like, oh my God, you'd be the best. Like, he's still just, you know what I mean? Like, again, like, I'm not saying Jon Stewart doesn't have good points. I like watching Jon Stewart, but also, like, okay, like, he's done a lot of good for a lot of people, but also, like, you know, is this, come on, you know? And so it kind of feels like that to me, where there's like a disconnect. Now, I understand some of the feedback I've gotten in the last few days is Brittany is too hard on liberals, which I feel like I'm very nice. I feel like I'm playing so nice with liberals right now because I've been a liberal for so long of my life, and I feel like I'm being really nice right now, but I can understand why people feel like I'm too hard on them. But a big part of it is because of exactly the way we're having these conversations. It just feels very like, I'm glad you're pro-gay and pro-trans, and, you know, you say you're pro-black, you know, you say you're all these things, but at the end of the day, like, who are you recommending? Who are you playing, you know, friendly with? Who are you trying to build bridges with? You know, it's just like, again, I think liberals are basically the new conservatives. They're like, they're like almost like, I don't even know how to explain it. MAGA is MAGA and liberals are liberals, but liberals are too friendly with MAGA. And I'm not saying you can't be good to your neighbors. Those are two different thoughts. I'm saying that as politicians, like, somebody wrote a comment. I covered this yesterday in my Monday stream, my member stream. Somebody was like, Brittany, you have to build bridges with MAGA voters that you have shared values with. I'm sorry, what shared values? That's the ignorance of a liberal. What shared values do you think I have with MAGA? That is the disconnect we are having in all of these conversations. Let me make it abundantly clear. I have no shared values with Republicans. I have no shared values with MAGA. We do not have shared values. There is nothing that I stand for that we would overlap on. We are not the same. And that is the biggest difference with this conversation is this feels very similar to this whole, like, Charlie Kirk and I didn't always agree. Well, when did you agree? What in the world would you and Charlie Kirk have in common? So that's what I need to say to my audience, because I know, you know, sometimes I take for granted that you guys know where I stand on things, but that's why I want to do these streams for the next couple of days, just to make it clear to people what's happening on this channel. Just to be clear, I have nothing in common values-wise with MAGA, nothing in common values-wise with Republicans, and almost nothing in common with liberals, at least policy-wise. The only thing liberals and I have in common is our desire to, quote, fight for minorities. But even liberals at this point, I'm questioning their intentions, because the way they pull back their punches when it comes to trans people and people of color, like the way they have pulled their punches when it came to the genocide in Palestine, the way they pull their punches, like, I don't even think they really believe it anyways. Remember that liberals want to work within the system. They think the system can be reworked. You can't rework a bad system. You got to just start over, right? And I know that sounds scary to people because people are like, well, how will that happen? How will that work? It's not as scary as you think it is. It's not going to be scarier than what you're experiencing now. And I think that's the problem, is people really think like, and I don't personally think it, maybe I'm naive, but I do not think advocating for a better system where people are actually helped will ever be worse than what we're dealing with now, what we've been dealing with since the start of this country. Okay? So again, be kind to your neighbors, but hold your politicians accountable. Okay? Let's see, chat says liberals literally resent people who do fight for the oppressed. I think they see it as like, you're doing too much, right? You're doing too much. And I get it. Like, you know, Hassan's been getting it in the last few days, I think, especially because people are coming after him again for his like Kamala Harris position, which obviously as a progressive, he had the right position, which was like, you know, and I was much more aggressively optimistic about not Harris, but not voting Trump. Like I made it very clear. I voted from Croatia. I made an effort to show up on my stream and say, obviously we're not excited, but obviously it's also exciting in some ways. Look, there are really beneficial things to being a part of the first of something, because it means there's more to come. And also we have to get over that hump of voting for a woman of color. Like that is just a normal progression of things. But also we were very critical. And I also was very empathetic and sympathetic to Arab communities that didn't want to vote for her because of her stance on genocide. Like I really respected and I voiced my respect for those communities. I think that's the difference is like liberals don't respect those communities because they don't understand. They're not libertarians who are like both sides are bad. They're communities who have been begging the Democrats to do something and the Democrats have been literally turning their backs on them. That's different than a libertarian who's like both sides are evil. Both sides have bad things. Like that's not the position these communities were taking. And now you look at what's happening now and you see the way these there's a lot of memes right now about like, you know, the Democrats coming out and being like, what Trump is doing is very bad. And everyone's like, well, do something. And the truth is, and this is what's so painful to recognize, they are not as powerful as you think they are. But that doesn't mean you don't have power, right? It doesn't mean like the Democrats are powerful, but I think even for all of us, it felt like, can they not do anything? They can do more than they've done, which is why you have to keep pushing them. And you need to keep pushing those people to do more because they are supposed to be working for us. And they played way too nice with MAGA. They've been playing way too nice with MAGA, right? So yeah, like they can't do as much as you think, but they can do something. And that it's hard to do something under Trump's regime because it really is like, it's pretty bad, you know, like he's just really going for it. Like every opportunity, everything he can get away with, he's going to get away with it. So, but don't lose hope. Okay. Don't lose hope. We want to like refocus and make sure that we're like locked in, but we also want to be realistic, but hold these Democrats accountable.
But you cannot tell me that the reasons for hopelessness now are greater than the reasons for hopelessness for an enslaved person in the 1850s who had no reason to believe that an Emancipation Proclamation was on the horizon. You cannot tell me that the reasons for hopelessness now are greater than the reasons for hopelessness for an unemployed worker in the early days of the Great Depression who never heard of a New Deal. And you cannot tell me that the reasons for hopelessness now are greater than the reasons for a closeted LGBTQ person in the 1950s who never knew of a country where they could live openly and authentically as themselves. So yes, things are challenging, things are scary, but the one thing we can't give up is hope. And if every previous generation was able to summon their hope in the face of seemingly impossible odds much greater than the ones we're facing now, then surely so can we.
I love that. That's so necessary. That's beautiful. And I really hope.
I think the point we're trying to make ultimately is life will always be this way. That's Sarah McBride, for those who don't know. Life will always be this way because humans are this way. That doesn't mean that humans don't change. And it doesn't mean that chat says let's summon a Katara. Let's bring our hope to the table and let's focus. And let's also be a little bit more serious moving into adulthood. You know, not everybody is an adult right now, but a lot of us are the adults in the room. And so we have to be a little bit more serious when having these conversations. And we have to be a little bit more serious with how we're showing up. Because some serious stuff is happening right now and it's going to be bad for like a decade. Like we're going to have a lot of problems for the next 10 years. And so, you know, the good times will come again, or, you know, there's always bad times, good times, but you know, it won't feel as bad. But that's not right now. Right now, it's going to feel pretty bad. Okay. So I just want to, I want us to go back and forth between the news and philosophy, and just remember that this is a philosophy channel. We do philosophy through pop culture, and philosophy, this love of wisdom, this understanding the why, knowing our place in the universe. This is going to ground you as things get messy. It will ground you as things get bad. It will ground you as people come to your front door and knock it down, right? It will ground you. And the way that people get through a genocide with religion and putting faith in God, we're going to get through it by putting faith in humanity and ourselves and knowing that we're going to do the right thing even if nobody else is doing it. Because if enough of us did that, then it'd probably be a little different. The outcome would be different, okay? So let's go ahead and we're going to go back and forth between CNN, Phil, other news stations, and just have this conversation about what's been going on lately. Also, I can't watch certain news stations because they keep copywriting and taking down my videos, like The Guardian. So I have to be pretty cautious about who I view the news through today, which is like, again, I understand everybody has to make money out here, but you would think the point would be to spread awareness about topics. But see how even the news is a business at the end of the day? You know what I mean? Okay, let's see.
By Trump's agents of the state. For the Trump administration and the whole MAGA, Alex Preddy was his name, and he was executed in broad daylight by Trump's agents of the state. For the Trump administration and the whole MAGA machine, they're so far from caring about the truth that they're pushing a narrative completely contradicted by all the evidence. Right? And in the process, they're apparently abandoning whatever convictions they claim to have about the First and Second Amendment, and really the whole Constitution for that matter. The lies and the hypocrisy, it goes beyond Preddy's killing, and the consequences, it's more than just one man's life. And so we're going to talk about and break down all of this in today's show, including how it could lead to another government shutdown. But first, even though I think it's clear based off of if you've even taken a quick look, the facts matter here, and we need to talk about exactly what we can all see in all of these videos of the shooting that are going around online. Right, in one clip, about 2 minutes before the shooting, you see Alex Preddy. He's an ICU VA nurse. He's seen filming with his phone while arguing with an agent who pushes him toward the sidewalk. Then another video shows him continuing to argue with the agent who appears to point his pepper spray at Preddy while 2 other agents are holding another person down on the ground. Then about a minute later, Preddy's seen standing in the street filming another argument involving at least 2 protesters and an agent, waving a car through as he does. You see him let the vehicle pass him as he continues to film, and the agent shoves one of the protesters. She then moves toward Preddy. They're holding onto each other as the agent keeps moving forward and pushes Preddy this time. The agent then pushes the protester. She walks over, knocking her down into the snow on the side of the road. Preddy then jumps between the protester and the agent pepper sprays. And a big thing to note is that Preddy's hands are clearly visible. He's holding his phone in one, and he puts the other up to try and protect himself from the pepper spray. And he also turns his back.
Look at that. Wow. Look at how clear. It's so clear. Like the video is so clear.
Preddy's hands are clearly visible.
Look at that. Boom.
He's holding his phone in
Okay,
one.
boom. Both hands up.
And he puts the other up to try and protect himself from the pepper
Camera's
spray. And he
going.
also turns his back to the agent who continues to deploy his pepper spray, with Preddy then
He's moving the girl up. That's what he's doing on the left camera. He's like trying to move her out of the way.
appearing to try to help the person who is knocked down as she slips trying to get up. But then you see several other agents arriving to the scene. They grab Preddy, they hit him several times, they force him to the ground. And about 8 seconds after he's pinned, agents yell out that he has a gun, with one agent wearing a gray jacket whose hands had been empty.
So here's this agent. Here's the gun.
Now removing himself out of the tangle with a gun in his hand, right, which has widely been reported to match the profile of the firearm that DHS later said belonged to Preddy. And then, as it appears that Preddy has been disarmed, all these agents are on top of him. Another agent pulls out his own firearm, aims at Preddy's back, and appears to fire one shot at close range, with him then appearing to continue firing at Preddy, who collapses, and a third agent unholsters a weapon, and both agents appear to fire additional shots into Preddy as he lies motionless. And in total, at least 10 shots appear to have been fired within 5 seconds. Now, with all that, we don't know every single thing about what happened, but even less may have been known when you had the Trump administration presenting its own decisive version of events, with, for example, DHS Chief Kristi Noem saying,
an individual approached U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. The officers attempted to disarm this individual, but the armed suspect reacted violently. Fearing for his life and for the lives of his fellow officers around him, an agent fired defensive shots. Medics were on the scene immediately and attempted to deliver medical aid to the subject, but he was pronounced dead at the scene. The suspect also had 2 magazines with ammunition in them that held dozens of rounds. He also had no ID. This looks like a situation where an individual arrived at the scene to inflict maximum damage on individuals and to kill law enforcement.
And with that, Noem and other Trump officials, they've gone even further, actually claiming that Preddy not only planned to, but did actually attack the agents. Noem even arguing that he had committed an act of domestic terrorism. Border Patrol Commander Gregory Bavino claiming it looked like Preddy wanted to massacre law enforcement, and Homeland Security Advisor Stephen Miller labeling Preddy an assassin who tried to murder federal agents, which is a post that was shared by Vice President J.D. Vance. But of course, all these videos that are out there, they do not show an attack. And the Trump administration, they provided no evidence that Preddy had plans to kill or massacre anyone. Preddy actually spent his time, his life, saving lives as a nurse in the intensive care unit of a Veterans Affairs hospital. Also, notably, he had a permit to carry a firearm, although if it's true that he wasn't carrying his ID, that would be a petty misdemeanor that comes with a maximum $25 fine for a first offense, not a fucking death penalty. And on the note of punishment, when it comes to holding the agents who shot him dead while he was on his knees accountable, it is very hard to be optimistic there, as you have the DHS again taking over the investigation, blocking local investigators from reviewing evidence, just like they did with the killing of Renee Good. But I'll say notably, you did have a federal judge in Minnesota issuing a temporary restraining order barring federal officials from destroying or altering evidence in this case. case. So then with that, since they're not letting anyone else access the evidence, you've got to wonder how likely they are to comply. Though that said, Trump may be wanting to try to cut down on the backlash with him, saying today that he's sending border czar Tom Homan to Minnesota and that he'll be working with Governor Tim Walz, who, according to Trump, called the White
Apparently there was, a call between Tim and Trump.
House to find some solution to the chaos happening in Minnesota right now. Right, with Trump saying that Walz was very respectful and claiming they're on a similar wavelength, but even if Trump does want
What does that even mean, bro?
Walk it back.
We're on a similar wavelength.
everything that's already been said, it's been shaping the way that this story is being told on one side of the internet. So for example, you've got pro-Trump influencer Nick Sorter wrongly identifying Preddy, who was an American citizen, as an unauthorized immigrant. Also, Jack Posobiec falsely describing Preddy as having run up on police and drawn a gun. And with that, you've got various accounts also sharing images from the shooting and claiming that they clearly show Preddy reaching for his gun, including some posting a screenshot where Preddy's hands behind his back. Notably, that is a fucking frame from after he got shot. It's his body reacting to multiple bullets. Some have also shared the close-up of the agent carrying what appeared to be Preddy's gun away from the scene to prove that Preddy was actually brandishing the weapon. And then others, they've just posted AI-altered images to make it look like Preddy had drawn his gun. But also, it's not just the two of us seeing the wild difference between Team Trump's claims and
That's what I mean. Who put those AI images together?
the video
That's
of Alex
crazy.
Preddy's death shows. You have witnesses, Alex's family, countless people online, as well as both current and former political leaders from the state and local level in Minnesota, all the way up to former presidents calling bullshit. And starting with the witnesses, you had sworn statements being submitted in court over the weekend as a part of a lawsuit challenging federal agents' interactions with protesters. One of those witnesses was a doctor who said they saw the interactions between Alex and the agent from their nearby apartment, and they described seeing a man being shoved to the ground and then shot several times, and adding that they went outside to help, but they were initially turned away. Though this time, unlike with Renee Good, eventually after a pat-down, the doctor said that the agents allowed them to examine Preddy, and they started CPR just before first responders showed up. Saying normally, I would not have been so persistent, but as a physician, I felt a professional and moral obligation to help this man, especially since none of the agents were helping. Also, another witness in that suit echoed that the official Trump trooper narrative doesn't match what they actually saw, saying the man did not approach the agents with a gun. He approached them with a camera. He was just trying to help a woman get up, and they took him to the ground. Saying I didn't see him touch any of them. He wasn't even turned toward them. It didn't look like he was trying to resist, just trying to help the woman up. I didn't see him with a gun. They threw him to the ground. 4 or 5 agents had him on the ground, and they just started shooting him. They shot him so many times. Between those accounts and you just using your own eyes to look at the video, it becomes pretty obvious to most people that Trump and his bootlickers, they're maliciously distorting reality here. Or to use the words from Alex Preddy's family, they said that the Trump administration is telling, quote, sickening lies about Alex that are reprehensible and disgusting. And dad, please get the truth out about our son. He was a good man. And you're seeing Minnesota officials echoing that sentiment as well, with, for example, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison calling Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem's defense of the agents, quote, flat out insane and a complete break with what we consider to be reasonable. And adding, I think that reasonable people watching the video could conclude that Preddy had a gun in a holster, that it was taken off him in plain view on the video, and that after that, he was shot. I think that a person who saw those things would not be hallucinating. And on the note of, these videos being taken, you had Minnesota Governor Tim Walz saying what I think a lot of people were thinking.
Thank God we have video, because according to DHS, these 7 heroic guys took an onslaught of a battalion against them or something. It's nonsense, people. It is nonsense and it's lies.
You then also had former President Obama giving a statement saying that Trump and his cronies, quote, seem eager to escalate the situation while offering public explanations that aren't informed by any serious investigation and that appear to be directly contradicted by video evidence. And with all that, adding, this has to stop. I would hope that after this most recent tragedy, administration officials will reconsider their approach. But also, for others, this situation is more than just a mishandled tragedy, with, for example, Representative AOC telling CNN that she thinks that this is the MAGA playbook.
What do you think is the strategy, if there is one?
Because if you can keep people divided, if you can keep the American electorate deeply divided, then you can continue to loot the economy, enrich yourself. You can continue to pass corrupt laws. I mean, it's no mistake here. It's no coincidence here. This is what they are trying to do in dividing us, because they know that they are on their back feet. The Trump administration knows that they are failing, that their support is shrinking among the American people, that people are sick of their lives getting worse and worse, and they need to create flashpoints to distract and divide us so that we don't have the power to organize to make our own lives better. That is the agenda.
And then, alongside these big names on the left, we're also seeing some Republicans jumping in, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, who defended Preddy and said that both sides need to, quote, take off their political blinders, and added, you are all being incited into civil war, yet none of it solves any of the real problems that we all face, and tragically, people are dying. And you're seeing that as there's also a growing number of Republicans calling for a deeper investigation into what just happened here, and maybe even a reconsideration about ISIS presence in Minnesota. And in fact, one Republican candidate for Minnesota governor dropped out of the race, saying that he no longer wants to be associated with the current Republican Party. But also, of course, there are still Trump's tried and true loyalists pushing their chosen narrative, including FBI Director Kash Patel.
No one who wants to be peaceful shows up at a protest with a firearm that is loaded with 2 full magazines. That is not a peaceful protest, and you do not get to touch law enforcement. You do that anywhere, this FBI is going to be leading the charge to arrest those.
But that then was met with nearly immediate pushback, perhaps.
Well, obviously, okay, hold on. Let's take a pause. First, chat says the argumentation is so condescending from Sarah McBride. No, it's condescending to say things were worse before, so you should not feel despair about the conditions today. I know media literacy is in the fucking toilet, but just for the record, that's not what she said. Just for the record, that is not what she said. So I'm going to be we're going to be very grown up today. That is not what she said. You need to understand what people mean when they say things so you can properly categorize things. Sarah McBride was not saying things were worse in the past, so you can't complain about what's happening today. She's saying, feel inspired by your ancestors and rise up with hope like they did, because if they can do it, you can do it too. It's a hopeful message. The same message I carry with myself when I think about my family and what they've gone through, when I think about my ancestors, the way I think about the women of my family who were the first in their lineage to do something amazing. If they can do it, I can do it. It's a message that says there's hope. There's a future here. There's something, because you have to understand, like, everyone before us had it worse off. That's, why, when they do those things where it's like, what time in history would you want to go back to? And then you have like a black guy and a white woman and then all these other minorities. And they're like, never. It's because the past was always worse for minorities. We would never want to go back. So that says the present is better. That doesn't mean the present is perfect. It means the present is now. And so we have to do it now, right? Okay, super chat from Lizzie says, new to your YouTube. Appreciate your work as a veteran. Ashamed and confused, but proud. I serve for people like Alex. But disgusted he was assassinated by government. I served. Rest in peace, Alex. Thank you so much for Lizzie for your service and the super chat. And I appreciate that so much. And I know even, serving can be so difficult, right? Like being a veteran, I have brothers that are veterans. It's such a complicated, weird relationship with like serving in a military in a uniform that has done so much bad in the world. And yet we do rely, and we should want for a better military, more ethical military. We should want our uniform to be something that represents something good rather than something scary as it approaches the front door. Which is why, like, we will abolish ICE. We should abolish ICE because there's no reason for somebody to be in that uniform. We can reform police if we start to actually have a conversation about why they were formed in the first place. We can have a better military if it represents a government that isn't the terrorist of the world. Like, here is our government, our president saying he's going to use our military to go in and take over other countries, which we know America's been doing, right? But it is so frustrating to feel like you served, you did something, you were told it was patriotic, you feel like you did something good, you did something with your life, and yet it's on behalf of a country that's really ruining other people's. And it's like, we have to live in this reality where we are both things. We are American citizens paying U.S. tax, contributing to a genocide overseas, contributing to destabilizing countries, contributing to what's happening right now with ICE, and we're still going to protest our own government. I mean, that is the point, right? Americans protest the same government we fund. And that's why we have to keep doing it, right? I said, it's something you can say when you're not in the front line of this shit. It's really bad. It's worse than the media reports. I understand your frustration. And in some ways, you need to humble yourself and realize it is the saddest thing, and yet it is not unique to you. You can be both things. You have to ground yourself in knowing it is not unique to you. That's what is so painful about being a person. And that's why I say be cautious before you have a baby. Be cautious as you enter the universe. The universe is a very rough ride. But you are not unique in this. You are just a part of history. That's why you have to do something. I know it's hard. That's why we have to talk about it. I know it's difficult. We just saw a guy executed right in front of us. We're watching genocides happen. We're watching famines hit communities. We're watching 22 million people in Sudan be uprooted and displaced. We know it's bad. So lock in and focus. And if you need help, go to a therapist because you deserve it. Go talk to a mental health professional. You deserve it because it is hard. We are not made for this. We are the product of this. This is a product of us, right? But be angry for the world, not at the world. Remember, school shooters, they're angry at the world. So be angry for the world and show up and do justice to the world. Do justice for the thing you say you believe in, right? You said you don't need to be in the front lines, but I need people's anger, not people's hope to feel better, not activate themselves. Anger without hope is school shooters. Your anger isn't hopeful or useful if it's not hopeful. You have to be angry and you have to be hopeful. Okay? FD Signifier just put out a really great video about this, how a lot of white guys are angry. And because they're so angry, they become ICE agents. They become military people. They join organizations to kill people because they're angry and it's displaced. So your anger without hope is not helpful. Okay? You have to be the right kind of angry, or you will end up contributing more harm to the universe. That's all we're saying. Okay?
Most notably from the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus, who responded to Patel's Fox News clip by saying that he was completely off base and that there is, quote, no prohibition on a permit holder to carry a firearm at a rally or protest, loaded or otherwise. With the men adding in a press release, every peaceable Minnesotan has the right to keep and bear arms, including while attending protests, acting as observers, or exercising their First Amendment rights. These rights do not disappear when someone is lawfully armed, and they must be respected and protected at all times. And that's really just a small taste of the much wider debate regarding Alex Preddy's possession of a gun at the time of his death, which, again, he had a license for and was carrying legally. For Team Trump, they really harped on this idea that because Preddy had a gun, the
Yep, this is why even the NRA came out to defend Alex, which is kind of crazy because God knows. Chad says, how do you get through it and ground yourself when your trauma overwhelms you? I do think, okay, so this is a philosophy channel, so let's do it philosophically, right? I have this thing called like being a whole human being, right? And it deconstructs the fact that you are a biological creature evolved over many years, okay? You are experiencing a biological relationship with existence. So you need to deconstruct the relationship that is your body. You are a physical body. You are a brain, okay? You have a nervous system. You have memories. You have a body that keeps a score. I know everyone hates the book, but just keep saying with me here, okay? You have a body that keeps the score. You have a body that, you know, is feeling a lot of, you're feeling so angry right now, right, chat? You're so mad. Your body is probably like this. So you need to remember you're having a biological experience mixed in with a brain that processes information, mixed in with what I call the consciousness that allows you to sort of ground your thoughts, hopefully, in a belief system, a values that tells you what your morals and your ethics are. Your morals, your personal values, right or wrong. Ethics, what you think society is right or wrong, what's good for society, right? So you want to be a whole human being. You want to know, one, who you are in the story. Are you the people who need to be on the front lines? Are you the people who are putting food together for people? Are you the people that are housing people? Or are you the people that are calling family members and telling everyone to get into therapy? First, you have to know who you are in the story. Then you have to figure out what's going on with your brain. Is my brain a well-oiled machine, or does this girl need to go to therapy? Do I have something going on in my brain that's also sort of distorting and making it harder for me to process information? I say this as an autistic woman. I say this as somebody who's been diagnosed with BPD and all of these other things and has gone to therapy. It really helps to know what's going on with your brain so you can ground yourself and get to it, okay? Your body, what's happening physically with your body. I'm also diagnosed with fibromyalgia. I have a chronic health problem. I am a chronically ill girly who right now got 5 hours of sleep once again because I forgot construction is still happening in my building. I forgot they left my apartment, but they're still doing my neighbors. So I woke up 5 hours after I went to sleep today. And here I am, girl. My body's in so much pain. And I sat there and said, I'm still going to show up on stream because it's the least I could do is do my job. Right? So here I am. Okay. You got you've got these things. Okay. Finances, how you survive in the world, because all labor is good labor, but we also live under capitalism and you have to pay your bills. So you have to have a secure relationship with your housing, paying your bills, eating, feeding families, doing all that good stuff. You got to pay your internet bill so you can access the internet. Okay? You have to do these things. And then philosophical, spiritual work. What is your philosophical relationship with existence? What are you doing on the planet? Who put you here? What is your belief about human beings in general, right? What is your relationship with being bad? Less bad every day. Because again, I'm not asking you to be better. I'm asking you to be less bad every day. That's my own, I'm not making a prescription. I'm asking you, would you mind being bad, a little less bad every day? All human beings have a relationship with their philosophical evil and their philosophical good. Okay. And so we have a lot of turmoil within ourselves. And every time we're getting pulled in a direction, I'm asking you to understand that all of us could be susceptible for engaging in philosophical evil. The world is a reflection of us as a whole. The world doesn't get to be the way it is without all of our participation. And that's the hardest radical acceptance tool you'll have to understand and integrate into your life. You cannot have humanity the way it is. You can't have your neighborhood the way it is. You can't have everything the way it is without everyone's participation. Even though individually, okay, this goes to the collective, to the village, to the individual. Individually, you might be getting ahead. You might be doing a little less bad. You might be doing all of these things. You're still a part of the collective. We're still a society. We're still Americans. We're still whatever we are, right? So when we have these conversations, okay, you have to understand that we're all playing a different role. But we all, well, it depends on what you view as like reality. I just did a series called Back to the Basics. For me, I think we're biological creatures. I think we are part of the universe. I do not think there is a God. I do not believe in like the supernatural. If it's true, data will prove it. But since we're just biological creatures on a planet, it means we have to have a deeper relationship with that biological experience in order to do right by our neighbors. And right now, people aren't having that because they are traumatized, because they're bigoted, because they are stubborn, and because they're losing hope. If you lose hope, you are losing the battle with your biological experience that your little evolved brain is telling you, nothing's going to matter. Nothing's going to matter. You might as well give up. That is your biological experience. And I'm telling you, don't give up just because your brain is telling you to. You're not going to jump over the balcony just because your intrusive thought tells you to, are you? Please don't. Okay? I know it's a fun meme and we all joke like, you know, I get it as a girl who's tried and attempted to end her life because of the burden of the pressure of the world. 2016 was the worst year of my life, but girl, I'm outside of it. And I want to get you there too. I know this might feel like the hardest time in your existence. I promise you, you can get to the other side of it and be so much more available for your community and for yourself if you can. I promise you, the healthier and more grounded you are, the better you can be for your community. And that's why we hold on to hope, because if you give up, that's one more person we have to work on saving. That's one more person that is drowning, we got to pull out of the pool. That is one more person that we don't have coming to the protest with us. That's one more person we don't have feeding people. One more person. So all of us need breaks. Yes. All of us need therapy. Yes. All of us deserve rest. Yes. And all of us, if we believe in the collective, the community, owe it to our collective and community to stay grounded, to remain focused. Because if you lose it, well, so it depends on how you view the world. It really depends on your philosophical outlet. It really depends on outlook. How do you view the world? What is your place in the universe? And it will change over time, by the way. We don't always stay the same person, So you have to think about that, right? You said hope isn't always good. Sometimes, perhaps most often, it enables abuse and cruelty, but no, it's not always bad either. I think you guys are having a bad relationship with hope. It's like empathy. If you guys are not wise and you do not have discernment, sure. But it's not the hope's fault that you're having a bad relationship with it. It's not the empathy's fault that you're having a bad relationship with it. You are responsible for the relationship you have to others, your body, your brain, and your hope. Okay? Be responsible and start focusing.
Agents were justified in shooting him, setting aside the fact that he was disarmed before he was shot. And that includes many other big names like Assistant U.S. Attorney Bill Essayli, Kristi Noem, obviously, and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. But now, many prominent guns rights groups, including the NRA, they took a break from gargling the Trump administration's balls to take serious issue with that. With a statement from the NRA saying this sentiment is dangerous and wrong. Responsible public voices should be awaiting a full investigation, not making generalizations and demonizing law-abiding citizens. With that said, I do have to add, one of the things I've been blown away by are all the commentators and personalities that, they say they're the don't tread on me, Second Amendment loving creators. How quickly they just abandoned their principles, how quickly they became bootlickers, how quickly they went from cheering on Kyle Rittenhouse showing up armed to Alex Preddy apparently had it coming for having a weapon but never going for it. And I just have to say to these frauds, if you only defend rights when it is convenient and benefits your side, you don't actually believe in them. And all these clowns saying it was his fault, he shouldn't have shown up to
I'd love to see, chat says, Phil getting more and more radicalized against the administration. Phil has always been a little too liberal for me. So I'm like, let's go, Phil. Start speaking your opinion, girl. And look, Chatter, I saw you earlier. You said you're not trying to start a fight. And I know you're not trying to start a fight. And it's my job to tough love you back into groundedness. I understand you're not trying to fight me. I know you feel like you are spiraling. You are not alone. You're not alone. Take a deep breath, recalibrate, rest, focus, get back in it. That's all you can do. You deserve rest. Everybody does. And then get back into it.
Protests. He wasn't listening to law enforcement. If not listening to law enforcement was a just reason to use deadly force, January 6th would have been a fucking bloodbath. Alex Preddy was murdered by a mob of government agents, Trump-sanctioned thugs executing an American in the street for having the audacity to use the First Amendment to film and also legal carry. There's just a few things I wanted to add. And then there's more we've got to dive into and just...
I think there's something to be said about the way we process information. It's just so important that we really understand that there's so much more going on than even what's going on now. It's not like things just started this way. Things have always been this way. It just looks different, right? Here's bell hooks.
White supremacy, first of all, isn't a white thing. It's part of this culture. It's part of how all of us have been taught to think about difference. Who's better, who's inferior, who's superior. I prefer white supremacy to racism precisely because it says that we're all being socialized to think along certain dualistic lines, and that the notion of that which is light or white being better, that which is dark or black being worse, bad, inferior, is something that everyone in the culture is socialized to think. White supremacy.
I think this is really important because it's baked into culture. Like, this is why we talk about systems versus people. It's why we talk about men as a system versus men as a people. It's why we have to deconstruct, not dismantle. Those are two different things. Yes, we want to dismantle, but these are two different things. Deconstruct means to pull it apart and understand the details of the system, your relationship with self, your relationship with everything outside of yourself. Like my levels framework, my philosophical framework is supposed to give you a tool to understand your relationship with everything within yourself, your relationship with self, and everything outside of that self. Because you are two things at once. You are multifaceted. The world is a multifaceted place. You are, in one part of your day, a sibling, another part of your day, a child, another part of your day, a parent, another part of your day, a worker, another part of your day, an activist, another part of your day, a lover. You are so many things all in one day, all throughout your whole life. And then you have to understand that every single one of those parts of yourself interacts with the world so significantly differently that it then causes, a new like sort of, turmoil with self in regards to identifying and processing and categorizing all of those differences into their proper places. Like white supremacy is system. It's built in through the education. It's built in through, just like watching media, just thinking about all the cop shows that exist, or all of the relationships we have to true crime, or all of the conversations we have about good guys and bad guys and what they look like. And not to mention that ICE is such a specific, like, group of people. Like ICE isn't even traditional law enforcement. Like ICE is its own. That's why when we talk about dismantling ICE, like people freak out. But like, what do you need ICE for? What do you think they're for? Except to terrorize people, and for what? So again, we have to also understand that we're all dealing with our own problems. And on top of that, like we're dealing with a limited amount of information because we all don't have the same information. So we have to think about it from that perspective as well, right? Okay, give me 2 seconds. Let me run. I'll be right back. And then we'll get back into it because I have a lot of videos to show you. We're going to be here for a second. Okay, I'll be right back. Love T. You guys said I'd love to see you see Love T's coverage. Who's Love T? Is that a TikToker or a YouTuber? Let's see. Oh, let's see. Lovely T? Is this, it looks like she's covering, this is old. It looks like she's doing media. Oh, there we go.
Get ready. Y'all get ready. Yeah.
Restaurants over there. So if you want, you know.
What do you want me to check out from her? Do you have like a specific thing you want me to watch or just in general? Because I can check her out for later in the week, possibly. Okay, let me see. Let me pause Elvin's music. Okay. Let's go on here. Okay, trigger warning. Obviously, we're going to watch a lot of the shooting videos, and I just want to make sure everybody's ready for it. And Alex is obviously not the only victim. Renee was not the only victim. There were so many more, and so I just want, us to keep that in mind.
Federal immigration officers fatally shot a man Saturday in Minneapolis. He was an ICU nurse who worked at a local Veteran Affairs hospital. Another controversial killing by U.S. immigration agents, and the second U.S. citizen killed this month. CNN analyzed cell phone footage from multiple angles. Taken together, they appear at odds with the Department of Homeland Security's initial claims about the lead-up to officers firing on Alex Preddy. Around 9 a.m. Central, video captures two people approaching a federal immigration officer.
And by the way, I mean, he really probably did not think he was going to die that day, right? Like, process that information, like, process that he had a dog waiting for him at home, he had family, he had a job, people, you know what I mean? Like, just, keep that all in mind. That he definitely did not show up that day thinking he was going to die. So shout out to all the people that are willing to show up because they really could be their last day on earth. Truly, like, protests, though most of them, you will survive and go to many, as I have gone to many. The truth is, some people won't come back from them. And that is why it can be so meaningful for you to show up. It is a big deal. People really are putting their lives on the line.
In front of an unidentified vehicle. The sound of whistles is blaring in the background. Alex Preddy enters the frame here. He's filming an officer interacting with protesters and waving a car through. 15 seconds later, Preddy yells, "Do not push them into the traffic!" In their statement, DHS said that an individual approached officers with, quote, a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. This video seems to show officers approaching Preddy instead of the other way around. We'll see later that Preddy does appear to have had a gun in his
Look at that. He's hugging this woman and this guy. So this guy, he escalates. Okay, we've been talking a lot about escalation, de-escalation in our personal lives and our private lives. This is the hard part. Okay, so when people tell me, Brittany, you have to build bridges with MAGA. Okay, listen to me when I say this. As somebody with a MAGA family, someone with immigrant parents who are MAGA, I will do my due diligence off the internet and certainly not publicly to work with my MAGA family to get them to deconstruct. That is my vow. That is my oath to my role in the family. Not out of obligation, but because it's a part of my joy. When we are talking about neighbors, we will feed and clothe and educate everybody. Everyone deserves healthcare, even Nazis. When we're talking about putting a line in the sand about right and wrong, bigotry has no place on the side of right. So when people say, Brittany, you have to come together with MAGA people about your shared values, we have no shared values. That's kind of the problem. There is no place in my value system for bigotry. Okay? Like, absolutely not. Now, here's the dilemma, and this is why philosophically I try to ground people by really understanding that nothing is new and everything is old, right? Black communities have been saying this forever, that everything you're experiencing isn't new to them. So just like get that together. Okay, minority communities, been through it, okay? Here's the part that's hard though. So first we have people. Okay, we have people, and people are fighting other people. Okay? And then these people all have families, families, and they go home to their families. Well, that's a good person, Brittany. Wow, good job. Okay, these people all have families, and these people all have workplaces. Okay, they have other communities and other places. Okay, and all of these layers of social interaction engage with their own bubble of expectation and belief system, and they all overlap, okay? But they are not all the same, right? And then on top of that, we sort of have this understanding that this is history. Like, we are in living history. And then the question is, what are they going to talk about when they reference this history? You know? And then on top of that, it's going to feel like, well, nothing's ever going to get done because this has always been history. And if history has always been this, then what's the point? Well, the point isn't to become nihilistic, okay? The point isn't to give up. The point is to accept. And once you accept, you can have a completely different relationship with existence, which is a really great relationship with existence. And then you can say, okay, when I'm here and acting in my family, I am playing a different role than when I am interacting with the world, and then when I'm interacting with myself. You exist in relationship to all of these things. Okay? And all of these things play a role in how we end up having a relationship with everything else. Okay? Everything else. So the hard part is, let's say we win this war and ICE is abolished and Trump is abolished. Oh my God. And we even beat out fascism and Nazis and everything goes away and the world is perfect. Do you still have to go home to your family? Do you still not have to deal with your relatives? Do you still not have to deal with pedophiles and molesters in your family? Do you still have to deal with the kids throwing rocks on freeways and killing people? Do you still have to deal with thieves and all these other things? We have to deal with all of it, all of the time, everything, everywhere, all at once, okay? So when we have these conversations about what we're doing and who we are and what role we're playing all of the roles, all of the time, some of the time, and always. Even when you are sleeping, you are playing a role. And that can feel exhausting because it feels like you're always on. When do I get to be off? You get to be off not by disconnecting, but by going deeper into that realization that you are a living creature on the planet. That's why I say, like, you want to have a deeper relationship with your biological experience. That's why meditation and living in the most present is the most alive you will ever feel. Because then you're not lost in the fact that you are in a role. You're radically in the most present. So you feel the reality and the power of the fact that you exist. The fact that you're alive and here in this moment. And then that gives you that feeling that you probably get when you watch a really cool movie or a great anime fight scene or a power up in a show. And you're like, oh my God, like you're really here. Maybe you feel it when you're making love to your partner, or feel it when you're holding your baby and looking at them for the first time, or, you know, having the realization as you see your aging father head to the, you know, the next life, and you're watching them and you realize, like, oh my gosh, like that thing, that is what keeps humanity going. It's what makes people have babies in times of war, during genocides. Right now in America, it's what keeps people falling in love and getting on Tinder. Look at you going out on dates while there's a whole fucking civil war happening, or on the brink of one. Look at you thinking about, you know, boys and flowers and, you know, fits and TikTok dances, because we are both things at the same time. We have to be. We have to be, you know? Just said, I'm curious what Brittany's take is on bringing children to protests. Depend on the protests. I've been to plenty of family-friendly protests, protests that are really about the neighborhood, protests that are about lifting the community up. So I've been to plenty of those. I think there are different types of protests you can go to. Not all protests are the same, and all protests are necessary. So there are plenty of protests you can bring kids to. I certainly would not bring children, nor the Week of Heart, to an ICE protest, okay? An ICE protest is a very specific protest that can escalate very significantly, very quickly to violence. And so I certainly wouldn't bring a kid there. And I wouldn't bring an old lady there. I wouldn't bring somebody who can't run there, because, like, look how it got. Even the young and the fit don't stand a chance. So maybe don't go there. It depends on that person. That person can make that choice. But children, probably not. But there are plenty of family-friendly protests that children can go to, like Pride. Pride is a very family-friendly protest that you can bring your kids to. Okay? Okay. Did I miss any interesting comments you guys want me to read? I don't mean to miss anything, of course. Let's see. I just want to make sure. If I miss anything, I'll give permission for people to repeat it. I usually don't like that, but I understand I might be missing some stuff that might be important, right? So feel free to repeat it if you want me to see it. I'll try my best to lock in and notice it. Chat said I attended the No Kings protest and it was peaceful, lots of different people, but I would not bring anyone valuable to these ICE protests. I would not bring anyone vulnerable, sorry. Vulnerable, yeah. A Discourse said, is there such a thing as an ethical military? It depends on how we view the construct of military. It's kind of one of those things where first we have to define what a military is. Like the big joke in Croatia, for those who don't know, I live in Croatia. The big joke in Croatia is our military is like, we have like 3 planes. And that's like the big joke. It's like, oh yeah, look at us, like 3 planes. But what is a military? If you mean the US military, I think the issue is that all things could be ethical in a different context. What's the difference between rape and consensual sex? It's the consent. That's the difference. So what's the difference between a good military and a bad one? The bad and the good, right? So it's hard to say with that sort of question, like, is there such thing as an ethical military? With the way that we do things now, I would say it's hard to say that the US military is a good thing. Like, I would definitely raise an eyebrow. Okay, first, if anyone's joining ICE, that's absolutely a no-go. But if anyone's joining the military, like, the issue is you have to understand the military is their marketing specifically targets really vulnerable people and promises them paid school and housing, which could be true. They offer them, like incentives to join. So a lot of boys, especially who are uneducated, graduated high school, but have no sense of purpose, the military promises to give them something that I don't even think it gives most people, because the military is like the rape and assault numbers in the military is insane. The amount of violence in the military is insane. The amount of evil they do is insane. The amount of homelessness after you've served is insane. The amount of mental health struggle that military soldiers experience, veterans experience is crazy. It's just like the divorce rates are incredibly high in the military. Like there's a lot of disadvantages to engaging in the military. But I would say, again, we want to strive for less harm, so harm reduction. And we want to ask ourselves in this moment of time we exist now, right? Like I've had 4 brothers who have signed up. I myself have walked into a military office. I think it's always about the time you sign up and why you go. I didn't join the military. I wasn't about to be told what to do. He was like, you're going to have to follow the rules. And I was like, ooh, I'm not much of a rule follower. I was thinking about stability, money, giving me a chance at an experience. I was like, do I want to join the Air Force? And then I was like, forget this. I'm just going to go hang out at BDSM dungeons and have other people tell me what to do, but I can consent my way out. And that's what I did. Spent 10 years in the BDSM dungeons. Basically the same. Everybody's in uniform and I'm being told what to do. The only difference is I could safe word out of it. So anyways, a lot of veterans at the BDSM dungeon, let me tell you, so it's kind of the same. I think the thing that's always going to be hard to remember is, well, this feels like the biggest main story in your life. You've also got other things happening. Imagine that there is this thing happening here and also people's mothers are dying from cancer in hospitals. Right? That's the hard part. Is not everyone can go out and protest because their kid is dying of cancer right now and they're in the cancer hospital for children. So know who you are in the story and know in which ways you need to show up, right?
Waistband, but this video shows he didn't have a gun in his hand, only a phone. Video from this white car shows an up-close angle of a federal immigration officer pushing one protester. Then, 3 seconds later, he pushes Preddy. And then as the camera comes into focus, you see the same federal officer push a third protester with the orange backpack. Preddy raises his hand and turns away, just as the officer sprays him with a chemical irritant. You see Preddy and the other protester trying to help the person with the orange backpack. You can see here an officer pulling Preddy off of this person. 3 more officers join, and then 2 more. Preddy is on the ground under them. One officer in a tan beanie can be seen repeat.
Like, this is what it is. So that guy who escalated earlier, we have to move for de-escalation in a way that says this guy is more than just this situation, not the ICE agent, the well, maybe the ICE agent, but not literally the ICE agent. The people involved. The ICE agents, first of all, are not being properly trained or vetted. Second of all, a lot of them are joining to do evil shit to people. And then 3, we have their commander in chief throwing up some fucking Nazi salutes over here. Not the president, the other guy. We'll talk about him in a second. And I know they're leaving Minnesota right now. I know there's a whole thing. But we have a group of people who do not know how to de-escalate, much like your father, the one you grew up with. You know what I'm saying? And then those men and those people become ICE agents, and then they show up on our streets with guns, and then they have authority over us that we don't have over them. And so it becomes this. Okay? And so remember that these people are someone's father, someone's boyfriend, someone's brother. Like, I want you to remember that these ICE agents are somebody's relative. Someone is they're about to go home to somebody. They're somebody's father, somebody's mother, somebody's, you know what I'm saying? And I don't mean to say that in the, oh my God, we should have empathy. I'm saying that so you can recognize that these aren't robots. They weren't built in a manufacturing facility. They were raised here on this soil. They were birthed here or they immigrated here, and they have chosen to sign up, to put on a uniform, to attack their neighbors. Because there is no reason to join ICE in this moment in time in 2026 in which it is not just to attack their neighbors. And think about that when you're on these dating apps and when you're talking to a guy. You need to think about that. You know?
Repeatedly striking Preddy's head with a metal can. You can see an officer in a gray jacket walk into.
Oh shit, chat. I'm so sorry. I said I just had my asylum interview with my family after waiting 10 years, and they took my brother to a detention center after a month unlawfully. Fuck Trump, fuck ICE, fuck the US, fuck Israel. I am so sorry to hear that. That's so fucked up. And agree to everything you just said. I'm so sorry.
The frame. There isn't a gun in his hand. Seconds later, officers shout.
Look at this scene. Just look at the scene. These two people trying to help each other. It looks like these are the women maybe that Alex was trying to protect. Okay. And then here's Alex. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We got 6 guys, 7 guys, V1? I thought it was 6v1, but it looks like it might be even 7v1. Or maybe this is a protester. Actually, this looks like a protester. This doesn't look like an ICE agent. So 6 ICE agents. Alex, here's another protester. And look at this. And then I think it's this guy who pulls out his gun.
The gun from Preddy's belt.
Okay, so the gun is gone, and Alex never went for his gun. Remember that.
The officer steps away from the scene carrying a firearm, seen here in his right hand. Then, gunfire.
Like, why? So what was that guy thinking? Like, the guy who pulled... So there was 10 bullets. Is it one shooter or was it multiple shooters? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Because the first shot, what went through his head? I want to know that. Like, what was he thinking? Obviously, we can assume what he was thinking. But really, what were you thinking? Because look, at the other ICE agents, they go like this. It was one shooter? No, one shooter, 10 shots? Bro, he was like 10 shots in that's crazy. One guy got off 10 shots?
At least.
And there's Alex's feet on the ground, devastating. I'm in the way. I think you should have to see it. I do. I really think when people die, we should have to witness them. There's Alex dead because someone, what did he do? Like, that's horrible. So this is what I'm saying. Like, I have a very strong stance that you should see people die. I think you should have to witness the death of human beings. I think you should witness without suppressing your feelings. You have to open up your vulnerability to see and witness life and death in front of you. Don't shut it down. Don't watch it like you're watching a YouTube video on some random Reddit site or some 4chan site. Watch it and let yourself feel what you're feeling while you're watching it, and recognize that the world is so violent, especially America, though. Especially America. America is so uniquely violent. And I know Americans don't understand it because they've been told by America that like the rest of the world is also so violent. America is very uniquely violent. And you should see the consequences of that violent conditioning, which is bell hooks saying white supremacy. White supremacy is inherently violent. And we built this country under white supremacy. We see the world through that lens. Everything we do is through that lens. You know how Israel will say, people will say, well, Palestine, if Palestine had the same amount of military power, they would do the same thing to Israel. That is what America has been, that's what the United States has been saying about every country that we have ever gone in and fucked over. Well, if they had the power, they would kill us. You mean the same way we're killing them? So the logic is I should punch my neighbor in the face before they punch me in the face. You cannot live in a world where you think you have to commit a violence first so they don't commit a violence. Because they weren't committing a violence. You committed the violence. That's literally like punching your neighbor in the face and being like, well, I just had a feeling that they would do it if they had the chance. But they were never going to do it. And that's what's so dangerous about America, about Israel, about this idea that often men under patriarchy use as a talking point. We're protecting you against this evil. We know it's evil. We would never do this evil, but we have to do a little bit of evil because they would do a big evil. But there's no evidence that they have done a big evil, and the only person doing a big evil is us. Okay? And that's the thing. Okay? So I do think like you have to be very aware that the world has always been this way. We are always living history, always. And we have to understand that we have also fallen for and repeated talking points that the government has given us because it almost sounds right. Yeah, wow, yeah. This group here, man, if they had the power, they would do that to us, right? Because they hate us, right? That's the other part of the rhetoric. The propaganda is they hate us. They hate America. They hate Jews. They hate Israel. No one should have hate in their hearts. But when you've been kicked and stepped and pushed and killed and raped and just bullied for your life, there is a snap people feel. And if you want to prevent that snap, you should be kind to people. And America has not been kind to people. Israel is not being kind to people. And that's what people have to take that's what these governments have to take accountability for. You are not creating the environment to enhance community, which is why I say to you, I know you're angry, be angry, but be angry for the world and not at the world. When you are angry at the world, you become a school shooter. When you're angry for the world, you feed people. You clothe people. You house people. You educate people. When you're angry for people, you protect people. Okay? So I want you to focus in on that because the world will tempt you every day to commit a tragedy in the name of justice. Just like America, just like Israel. Because that's what they tell themselves. They tell themselves they're the right kind of evil. They're a necessary evil. A necessary evil. Can evil ever be necessary? That is a really hard and difficult philosophical question to answer. Especially as somebody who's on a plant-based journey right now, and I'm eradicating as many forms of violence from my life as I can. Going plant-based has been a really important journey for me, and I feel much better doing it. I feel very good about it, right? Are there some levels of some sort of evil that I feel like I have to engage with in order to just exist? Yeah. To be honest, I think all human beings exist and contribute to evil. But that's because we're an animal species on a planet evolved over millions of years. And I also believe like no dogs are bad dogs, even dogs that like kill you. But also like we got to do something about those dogs. But maybe it's not putting the dog down. Maybe it's like relocation. Maybe it's rehabilitation. Maybe it's preventative care, right? Like I remember at the end of the day, do think we're evolved animals on a planet. And I think we exist within this space and this is the way that we are. But we are no different from animals that you might think of as predators or animals you might think of as prey. We're just existing, you know? And I think that takes like, I understand where I'm at. I'm 36. I'm in a different era of my life. I've done a lot of like meditation and reading. So I know a lot of this might not be where you're at right now. And that's absolutely fine and valid. But I just know for me, I did less for my community when I was depressed and angry and self-harming and suicidal. And I wanted to be better for my community. I wanted to be better for the world. And I just know I did less bad the more I healed. And I do think deep down, all these MAGA people, the reason they don't go to therapy, the reason they don't do the work is because it feels Zuko Book 1. You know, Zuko book, I think it's book 2, when they're on the fire island and he's angry and he's like, I'm angry. And they're like, who are you angry at? And they're like, is it me? Is it mom? Is it dad? Who is it? And he goes, I think it's myself. That is the world to me. The world is an angry place. And until we stop being angry with ourselves, we can't stop being angry at other people. Again, angry at ourselves versus angry for ourselves. Angry at the world versus angry for the world. Very important distinction.
10 shots ring out. We looked back at the scene from different angles and slowed down the footage. This officer, wearing a black beanie, can be seen drawing
this one. This guy. What the fuck were you doing?
Firearm and pointing it in Preddy's direction.
That's it right there. This guy, who is he? Has he been identified? We need to see him right now. Not so you can go kill him. Everybody calm down. But he needs to be held accountable, and we got to know what this is, and then we got to make sure we prevent it in every other person. Because like, what the fuck was that, bro? Is he the only one who pulled out his weapon? Yeah, arrest him. He should never be able to own a gun for the rest of his life. He should never be able to have a job in any kind of authority position. Like, absolutely, he murdered Alex. He needs to be held accountable for that murder.
We can't see his gun when the first shot is fired.
I also heard that Renee was considered a homicide. So, you know.
But we can see that this officer fired the second shot. In this angle, you see a second officer also had his gun drawn. And here, he's pointing his weapon at Preddy as we hear gunshots, though it isn't clear if he's the one firing.
What the f***?
So we don't know if it was him?
Did they f***ing kill that guy?
Preddy collapses onto the ground as the officers scatter backwards from around him. The same agent in the black beanie from earlier can be seen firing 5 final shots as Preddy lies there, motionless. Nobody approached his body for 24 seconds. When officers do return to Preddy, they appear to begin searching his body. Video shows that about a minute after Preddy collapsed, immigration officers—
Is he back on the job for real? Is that true? Or are you guys just saying that?
—ask for medical support. When CNN asked DHS about the officer removing the gun before the shooting, DHS repeated their earlier statement, quote, officers attempted to disarm the suspect, but the armed suspect violently resisted.
Joining me now.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. Chad says, did they think Alex shot? No, I think probably what happened, and I don't know this, I think he probably wanted to kill someone that day. Because there are a lot of guys signing up for ICE who are really excited at killing somebody. Like they want the opportunity so badly. And I think he saw the opportunity. I think that's probably more likely what happened. And I know that sounds really crazy, but yeah, I think that's probably what happened. FD put out this great video about how he had been robbed by a couple teenagers in the neighborhood. And after he told the story to some people about it, people were like, oh man, if they had robbed me, I would have shot them. I would have killed them. And it became clear to him that a lot of people want a reason to kill somebody, even a teenager trying to steal a whatever, right? And I remember having this conversation with friends like 12 years ago because people were like, if a guy comes to steal a TV from your house, do you kill him? I was like, I don't care about some fucking TV, bro. And they're like, what do you mean, bro? Don't you think that's weak? And I was like, no, I think you're fucking weak that you would kill somebody over a TV. They're like, yeah, but they came into my house. And I was like, yeah, but if you know they specifically are only going to steal the TV, fuck it, let them have the TV. Who cares about a TV? This is someone's life. Like, someone's life isn't worth a TV. And I remember getting into a fight with somebody over this, like a debate, because they were just like, well, I think that's weak, and I think you don't know what else they're going to do. And I was like, but the hypothetical is... So obviously, if the hypothetical is he's going to come kill me, okay, well, then that's a different conversation. But if the conversation is they're only going to steal my TV, what the fuck do I care about a TV for? Okay? A lot of people do think like, well, I worked for that TV and I worked hard for that TV. Okay. I get it. But are you really willing to kill somebody over a $500 TV from Walmart? Because I think that says more about your character than anything else. And America trains us this way. America tells you you're weak if you don't think about ending someone's life. You're weak if you don't fight somebody. You're weak if you don't do something XYZ. You know? I don't know how many times I've seen, and especially men raised under patriarchy who have not deconstructed their gender, they are deeply struggling with that need to be violent because it also ties into their gender identity. You want to talk about gender affirming care? Men being violent. Only in this case, it's gender destroying care. It's like, this is the worst kind of gender affirming care. And yet we normalize it so heavily in America, right?
Now is Juliet Kayyem, CNN national security analyst and former assistant secretary at DHS. Thank you for being with me, Juliet. And I want to play for you Greg Bavino, the Border Patrol commander at large, in just a moment.
Actually, wait.
But first,
pause. Now I want to go to this one. So this is CNN as well, but this is an interview with Greg Bavino, who apparently is maybe on the out right now. We don't know. But look at this. He's watching the review of the shooting of Alex. Okay.
You know, Dana, every situation is different. What our officers are faced with here in Minneapolis are chaotic, very difficult and violent situations in which individuals, and this suspect is not the only one to bring a loaded weapon to a riot. The situations are chaotic and ever-changing. Follow directions for law enforcement. Don't inject yourself knowingly beforehand into a law enforcement situation.
With respect, it feels as though in some ways you're blaming the victim here.
The victims are the Border Patrol agents. I'm not blaming the Border Patrol agents. The victim are the Border Patrol agents. The suspect put himself in that situation. The victims are the Border Patrol agents there.
I want to go back to the gun, sir, because I think this is really, really critical. You can see an agent, and I just want to go to, let's see here, video 5. You can see a screenshot of an agent in a green jacket approach Preddy, and then he appeared to take a gun away. When the agent took the gun away, which it seems as though it was Preddy's gun, that happened before Preddy was shot. Why was an unarmed man shot multiple times by law enforcement, by your Border Patrol agents?
Dana, you don't know he was unarmed. I don't know he was unarmed. That's freeze frame adjudication of a crime scene via a photo. That's why we have investigators. That's why we have an investigation that is going to answer those questions. How many shots were fired? Who fired shots? Where was the...
It's such a, he's, okay, we know what he's doing. We're not stupid. We see it, okay? He's creating excuses. He's already dubbing the ICE agents victims. He's already, he's all got it handled. This is the same guy that I showed you yesterday. Oh no, I'm being blocked. Fuck. Is my stream still here? I'm being blocked. That's so frustrating. How are we going to watch the news? Okay, it's fine. The future is bleak, girls. The future is bleak. Okay. That's fine. The future is great. Okay. So he's already reconstructing the conversation, right? To be like, these are the real victims. Okay. Hear me out to ICE. If you did not patrol the streets, if you were not banging down people's doors and grabbing people through windows, you wouldn't be faced with a proper amount of backlash from American citizens as you work for us, okay? And you wouldn't have to be in this position. You started it. See how people start it and they're like, don't start it. Go away. We don't need you here. They've already told you 100 times, we don't need you here. Go away. And the fact that you keep showing up, it's like, hello? Okay? And so this is what I want people to understand in every part of your life. Don't go looking for trouble. You will find it. Okay? Don't go looking for trouble. You will find it. And make sure you're ready to do the right thing when no one else will. These are very different and very important things you have to embody in your life. Okay? And ICE is looking for trouble. And the irony is they're still barely finding it because these people are so good, they would never escalate to the amount of violence that ICE will. And that's why you have to use discernment. You have to know the difference between when to engage and when not to engage. And the problem is we don't know. Listen, there is a reason why good people struggle to win battles, but it's not because they're good. It's because we're animals on a planet. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, we are animals on a planet. We are evolved animals on a planet. And there are ways to do this. There are ways to come together to be good as a whole, but we're not there yet. which is why I'm begging you not to become more bad in the name of justice. Be there, do the right thing, protect people, but don't do evil in the name of good. Because you might as well just be a MAGA at that point. So do the right thing. Like, hear what I'm saying. I know it's really difficult. Be wise when you engage with violence, because the time will come. Be wise in that decision. We all engage in violence on the daily, whether you're eating animals or destroying, plant life, or, even on your cell phone while you're driving. I swear to God, if I see one more streamer texting, driving, reading chat while in the car, I don't know why you keep making these people famous. Especially people that I usually tend to think nicely of, watching them literally on their phone during stream. Why are you streaming and driving? Hello? And so many progressive people are doing this. Guys, hello? Please stop doing this. Okay? So you have to make an effort to harm reduce to be less bad every day. That's what I ask of MAGA people, but they're not ready. They don't want to do it yet. Because they don't understand how they're being bad, because everything they're getting reinforced into their brains is good, including when they get platformed by progressives in the name of having a conversation. That is a reinforcement in a MAGA brain that they're on the good side, because they are being talked to, laughed with, engaged with in a work setting in a way they should not be engaged with. Talk about MAGA, do not platform MAGA. Talk to your MAGA family, do not give them microphones. Okay? This isn't funny anymore. It's 2026. This isn't 1999. This is not fucking Hannity and Combs. This isn't fucking, okay? Talk about MAGA. Do not platform MAGA. These are different things, especially as streamers. Okay? If you're a serious journalist, a serious news person, obviously you have to do what you have to do. But then make a decision about which one you're playing. Which one are you? Okay? Let's see if we can watch this video without getting fucked up. This is an interview with people who knew Alex.
Hunter Preddy's life and call for change tonight. Vigils for him are happening across the metro. The biggest, though, at Whittier Park tonight, as the Minnesota Immigrant Rights Action Committee hosted a candlelight vigil. Thousands filled the park calling for change. This scene is just blocks away from where Alex Preddy was shot and killed. After the rally, demonstrators marched back to the scene at 26th and Nicollet. As the community grieves the loss of a man, those who knew him say he was a person who helped others even in his final moments. Uba Ali joins us live where Alex Preddy was shot and killed, and a memorial is growing tonight. Uba?
Yeah, Derek, and despite the bitter temps, people continue to gather here in chants, holding up signs and reminding people that this is not what Minnesota stands for. Many here saw how he died. This has become a sacred space for them to mourn Alex Preddy.
Just to clarify, chat, because again, wording matters. You said, I think not talking about MAGA just reinforces them because they're fueled off that silenced rebel energy. Just to be clear, is that for me or is that in general? Because sometimes I can't tell if chat is actually reacting to me or just sharing a thought. But just so you know, that is not what I said. And I hope you know that's not what I said, right? I explicitly said the opposite. And I just want to make sure that's clear because I can't tell. As a YouTuber, I don't hear your voices. I don't know who you're talking to. But just to be clear, I explicitly said, make sure you talk about MAGA, but you don't platform MAGA. Okay, I just want to make sure that's clear.
But those who knew him best say helping others was not optional, but it was automatic, and that's what he was doing before he was shot and killed.
37-year-old Alex Preddy is remembered as a healer, caring for the sickest as an ICU nurse at the VA. His friend of 2 decades.
There are going to be times when I pick up the phone and I'm not going to be able to get a hold of him for sure.
Heather Zielinski is heartbroken, but she says helping people was who he was. And this moment captured tells the whole story and why he died.
Absolutely, he was standing up for someone. Absolutely, he was standing up for that woman that he was trying to help up. He was trying to help her get out of that situation.
In a statement, his father told the Associated Press he cared about people deeply, and he was very upset with what was happening in Minneapolis and throughout the United States with ICE, as millions of other people are upset. He was born in Illinois and raised in Wisconsin. They say Preddy owned a handgun and had a permit to carry. Outside the hospital, an avid outdoorsman, biking and hiking, finding peace in nature.
He leaned into the things that he was passionate about, and that's one of the things that made him very successful.
In a statement, another neighbor said Alex had a dog who passed in the past year or so. She said, quote, "I remember how sweet it was that as his dog was more elderly, less mobile, he'd be willing to help carry him down to the yard to get some fresh air and to enjoy the outdoors. His dog would lay down and Alex would sit with him and pet him for long periods of time. He was very caring." Preddy lived to help others.
Could they have not killed my friend? Yeah, they could have not killed my friend. They did not need to kill my friend.
Tonight, others are standing up for him.
I just want to say, Chad says, damn, even Tucker Carlson was speaking up against this, I believe. I was like, whoa. Okay, listen, I'm going to be the bad guy right now. I don't give a fuck if you say you're pro-Palestine or anti-ICE, if everything you've done for the last 40 years was back this fucking administration, was back Republicans, was back MAGA, was back conservative talking points. And I know for a fact Tucker Carlson, along with all the other grifters, are 100% co-opting these movements in order to push a worse agenda. Remember, there's a difference between being pro-Palestinian and anti-Jew. And Tucker Carlson and all these white nationalists hanging out with Nick Fuentes are much more anti-Jew than they are pro-Palestine. And pro-Palestine is anti-Israel, which is different. So again, I don't want to be that girly, but I'm going to be that girly. Be careful when you give any of these motherfucker any kind of credit, because they are exactly manipulating you the way they've done for 40 years. Okay? They are not good people. They are not building bridges. They are 100% manipulating you because it is funny to them, amusing to them, it pays their bills, and because they want a future which is even more white supremacist, even more bigoted. Tucker Carlson is not on your side. Okay? He is not on your side. No matter what he does or what he says that sounds like he's on your side, he is not on your side. Okay? He has done an incredible amount of harm to this country and this world with every time he opens his mouth with that microphone. And remember, Tucker Carlson was not caught. He proudly said on a radio interview, you have to convince the peasants that they don't want to be in the tower with you. And that is my job. Remember, he's the grandson of Swanson. He is worth so much money. He is not interested in ever actually being a person. He's interested in having fun and playing games. He only became a journalist to piss off his dad. He thought it would be funny. Okay? So just remember that anytime you're like, oh my God, I can't believe even no. Marjorie Taylor Greene? No. These are not people who are having a change of heart. These are people that are making strategic chess moves in order to get ahead of what they think is a failing administration or something adjacent to. They are just trying to save their own careers for the next 20 years because they're bored and won't do anything else with their life, okay? So again, when we have these conversations, okay, remember, these people are not your friends. They are not heading towards a future with no bigotry. They're heading towards a future where they are once again at the top of the bigotry pyramid, okay? All right, thank you. With peace and love, with peace and love. Okay, so now I'm worried that I won't be able to play this, but let's try.
The Trump administration is changing who's in charge of the ongoing immigration crackdown. So is this a sign that the president is backing down? Today, Border Patrol Commander-at-Large Greg Bavino, he's seen here in this archive video throwing a gas canister at protesters last week. He's going to be leaving town. He's expected to take some of the 3,000 federal agents in the city along with him. The White House says border czar Tom Homan will take over the operation. For protesters on the ground, Bavino's exit is only a first step.
Good riddance. Couldn't have came sooner. And but I mean, that doesn't mean everything stops, right? We can't take back what happened before, but we're still living in trauma from Renee and countless other people, right? But now we have this, that he came to our community and caused all this damage. It doesn't just go away because he leaves, and then who comes next and what happens next?
Joining me now in the group chat, Alex Thompson, CNN.
Okay, just so we don't have the risk of getting copyrighted, we can move on. I think chat says Trump only has like a couple years left. Why still do this when you're that close to dying? Who knows what Trump's true motivation is? But I think Trump, if I had to say, along with all these men in power who do these things, Netanyahu and everybody else, sometimes I think it's like a sunk cost fallacy. where they know they're facing like federal crimes. Like Netanyahu, he has a warrant out for his arrest. Trump, he is being held, he needs to be held accountable. Like people want him arrested. And I think a big part of it is like, they think if they keep doing this thing, they won't have to face the consequences and then hopefully they'll die. Like I do think these old men just maybe they'll die before they actually have to pay for their crimes type thing. And a bigger part of it is legacy and a big part of it is ego. And then of course they think they're setting up their kids for the future. Because remember, unless Trump's kids follow him into prison, they will just benefit from all the money their father has made. He made, what was it, $800 million or something? It was like an obnoxious amount of money since he's been president, since 2016. Like he's made so much money just using his name for people, like for his kids, for his legacy. So again, I think these really wealthy, really gross people, I think they think their kids living on with their legacy is a part of it. So, you know what I mean? I think they try to do as much as possible before they go out. But I think they also just don't, they think they're right. Like Trump, what's the word somebody used the other day to describe Trump? And I thought it was so apt, but I can't remember what word it was. What was the word? It was just like a vindictive word, but not vindictive. It was just very like Trump is just like, he's not stupid, you know, he's not stupid, but he is entitled, like and entitled to such a degree is just so insane, you know? And who knows if he even thinks he's dying really around the corner so much. I don't know. But yeah, he's Discord. Oh, that GIF, that storyline in Lord of the Rings. Oof. Yeah, spiteful, callous. Like he is spiteful. He's vindictive. He's like, yes, chat. He's deeply vindictive, and he's very petty. Like you ever see petty? You know why I say be careful about your pettiness? Because I think Trump might be the most petty motherfucker I've ever seen in my life. Remember when he said at Charlie Kirk's memorial, when Erica Kirk gave that faux speech about forgiveness, he said, "Oh, you're better than me. I don't forgive. I remember." He remembers every grudge, every bad thing. That's why I say forgive for your own sake. Okay, forgive. Let go of the hot coal you're holding on to. That is your attachment to forgiveness, and let it go. For your own sake, let it go. That doesn't mean you forgive their actions or invite them back into your life. You forgive the fact that they're a human and you guys cross paths. Because that's what's really happening. We are all just biological creatures crossing paths. And that's what's so devastating about existing on a planet with other people, is we could just be in the greatest place in the universe if it wasn't a threat just walking down the street next to people. Look at us afraid when we just walk down the street and we see another person and we think, oh, fuck, am I going to have to fight somebody today? Just think, oh, that anxiety, or maybe that's just me because I have anxiety, but like, every time you're alone, maybe that's because I'm a girl and I'm 5'1", you know? Every time I'm on the street, and especially in a place where I don't know the language, and especially in a place where like, I don't always know what's happening, I'm always like, oh, am I gonna have to fight today? Like, is this a fight moment or is this just my anxiety? What is this? I would love to live in a world where I didn't have to think about that. And I say that living in one of the safest places in Europe, literally Croatia is literally like one of the absolute safest places. And I still am always like, am I going to have to fight? And now imagine you're in a place with ICE, and now imagine you're in a place that's getting patrolled, and now imagine you're in a place where, you know, people are screaming, they're coming, right? And look, did you guys see this audio? Oh, I should have pulled it up before I started this. I don't know if it's true, if this audio is real. I was trying to find the source for the original audio. Man, TikTok is down, bro. TikTok is it got fucked the moment it got bought. But there was this video of this woman and man screaming in the streets like, they're coming, they're coming. She was screaming it in Spanish, and he was screaming it in English. And they're like, shut your doors, shut your doors. And look, I don't know if that's real, but damn, that's the feeling. That's the feeling we're living through. I don't know if this is real, but that feeling must be what people are really feeling. You know, stay inside, close your doors, they're here. And then they're saying it in multiple languages so people know it's coming. I don't know where this is from, but it does feel that way to your neighbors. Okay. It feels that way. And it's happening. Like, I know people might be like, oh, that's just like a movie, but it's happening in the same way that it happened to the Jews when they were, holocausted and taken to those, it's the same as living in America, being Black. It's the same, like, it's the same as not even being able to start your life, and then your neighbors are screaming, they're coming. It feels almost like, if we thought about it as a movie, almost like a zombie apocalypse in a way. It's like the scariest feeling to feel like, oh my God, like, what are these sounds? And that is real. And that's what people are feeling right now. It's what people have felt throughout history. And if you want, I want to exist in a world where, like, we don't have to feel that way, right? Just as Americans deserve to live in fear for once. I know you say that, but just a reminder, plenty of Americans have lived in fear forever. Americans have been shot in the streets, brutalized by their own police forces. Okay, Black Americans have been hung in the streets. We have had gay and trans people killed in this country. Like, I know you think because America is so privileged, and it is globally, and I know that. It doesn't mean American people aren't shot down by its own people. And I hear you. I get you. I know people who don't live in America who have been absolutely victimized by America. I hear you. But I need you to remember that American citizens, they are terrified. Not all of them, obviously, but a lot of them are terrified. And a lot of them are scared. And they've been scared since the inception of this country, since the Native Americans were genocided by its founders. Okay? I understand that you forget that minorities in this country have been rounded up, put in internment camps like the Japanese were, okay, that American citizens have been kidnapped off the streets and we have been tortured. And we are lucky that we're not the group who has been targeted. Like, I'm lucky that I've got out, that a lot of people haven't had that happen, but it does happen to Americans. So you have to hold both truths at the same time. That our country is killing our own people and our country is killing people in other countries. And both of those things are true. So I deeply empathize. I know your brother was taken. That is devastating. I know your family has been targeted. I am devastated for you. I am devastated for you. This is why we don't compare suffering, even though we hold in our hearts an understanding that not everybody is suffering in the same way. Suffering is suffering. Everybody suffers, So I understand. I do. That says, to be honest, you could argue that a lot of the settlers came to the U.S. out of fear of religious persecution, whether founded or unfounded, which is the convo itself. But I don't know if that's true. I think that's the myth they tell us. I think the myth they tell us is that they left their country out of political persecution. But the truth is that whether or not they did, they came to conquer another in the name of it. Right? So, like, I sure they can tell themselves that, but their actions don't follow thusly. They didn't come to America as refugees, did they? They came as conquerors. And that was the difference, And I very much caution that storytelling of, like, the founders were being persecuted. If they were being persecuted, then they should have come as refugees.
It's worse than even I expect. I will admit it's worse than even I expect.
Here's what Obama said about Trump before the 2024 election. This is 2025.
But I did warn y'all. I did. You can run the tape. In Donald Trump's mind, the military does not exist to serve the Constitution or the...
And I understand Barack Obama is a war criminal, so everyone just slow down.
American people. Like everything else, he thinks the military exists to do his bidding. And he has said that if he's elected, he'll use the military to go after, quote, the enemy within, which he seems to define as anybody who criticizes him. Trump's other big idea is to slap a tariff on everything from food to TVs. Now, almost every economist who has looked at this idea says that won't lower prices, that makes prices higher. Donald Trump's former chief of staff said that Trump told him he wanted his generals to be like Hitler's generals. Now, in politics, a good rule of thumb is don't say you want to do anything like Hitler. But it gives you a window into how Donald Trump thinks. Donald Trump wants us to think that this country is hopelessly divided between us and them, between the quote-unquote real Americans who support him and the outsiders who don't. Donald Trump sees power as nothing more than it means to his ends. He wants the middle class to pay the price for another huge tax cut that would mostly help him. Now, if you challenge Trump on his concepts, he will fall back on one answer. This is blanket answer for everything. Blame immigrants. He wants you to believe that if you let him round up whoever he wants, Ship them all out. Put together these big detention camps. Your problems will be solved. Bluster and bumbling and chaos. We have seen that movie before, and we all know that the sequel is usually worse.
I think what this is meant to say to me is that Trump won because a lot of those, quote, liberals, didn't either vote or didn't show up or gave in or said, let's try something different. A lot of those podcast bros who were, quote, lifelong Democrats, right? And we're not even pro-Democrat party, but there's something here to be said, right? Just says, where are the American people? What do they stand for? What are American values? Get the fuck out of here, man. I remember your story. I think I even remember what state your family immigrated to, if I'm not mistaken, right? I remember you and I hear you. And as somebody whose family also immigrated, right? I hear you. American values are not that much different than anyone else's because they still fall under patriarchy and they work within capitalism and they work with anything else. But what America is what happens when a superpower believes the lie their government has told them since the inception of this country. And the consequences of that will be the worst for everybody else and for us as well. But Americans are privileged. I'm not going to play the game that they aren't, right? Americans are privileged. We are literally the superpower. And even though we're suffering within America and we feel like, oh my God, we don't even have money and we have negative monies and we don't have anything. Yeah, like I think we are. It's weird to be privileged and suffering. But that's why I say everybody suffers. American values, I don't know that anybody has them globally. I don't really believe in it. I think the myth of man is that any of us have values. I think the myth of humanity is that we stand on principle globally. And I know this because femicide is up. I know this because domestic violence is up. I know this because patriarchy is loud globally. So as a woman and as a queer person, I can be mad at all of you. Because as far as I can see, America might be the loudest and the biggest, but you guys are following pretty closely in suit when it comes to women and gay people and femme people, okay? Trans people, LGBT people, when it comes to reproductive rights. So let's not play that game of who's suffering the most. Because at the end of the day, when all this is said and done, this whole thing is happening because of men with guns. Men as a system globally are suppressing all of us. So I don't want to point a finger at a whole group of people. But until we dismantle patriarchy globally, we will continue to suffer. And that's the truth of it. Okay? So just remember, we are all suffering.
In Minnesota. You know, sometimes let's talk about what's going on in Minnesota. You know, sometimes you're at like a coffee shop or on a plane and somebody is watching a movie in front of you or next to you. And of course you can't hear it, but you can kind of see a little bit of the movie and you kind of get an idea of what's going on by seeing a scene or two. Well, if what is happening in Minnesota was a movie that somebody was watching in front of you, and you saw the scene with what happened to Renee.
Hold on. Chat. Discord says the average white citizen is not afraid nor at risk. The average is not. We know that. So we know, like, I know we were talking about 2 main white people who died recently from ICE. The average American who's white is not at risk. So I need you to process that, and I agree with you. You need to be able to hold two truths at the same time, right? I think that's what's really important here. Because, like, you know, when we look at the world, and I see this, I need you to hold, and I know Discord, that's why I love that comment, because Discord's right. The average white person is not afraid. That doesn't mean white people won't get killed by ICE. It means that when you, like, okay, example, wait, let me show you. No, was it this video? No. Do you guys know the hairstylist on YouTube who does like the crazy long hair and he puts the tinsel in people's hair? He made a video about ICE, coming out against ICE. And somebody in his comment section, a white woman, was like, wait, who are we talking about? Like, what's going on? I think I missed something. And that's the point. That, okay, We are capable, we are able, some of us, to literally not know what's going on. And if you already love politics the way that we do in this bubble, even though we think politics are where good people go to die, they don't know what's going on because most Americans didn't vote. Most Americans aren't politically involved. So that's why I say you have to keep talking about things and bringing awareness to things, because America is so privileged, it doesn't have to pay attention. It doesn't even have to know what's going on. It doesn't even have to be a processed experience, right? Okay, sorry, let's watch this again.
Let's talk about what's going on in Minnesota. You know, sometimes you're at like a coffee shop or on a plane and somebody is
Sorry, in case you don't know, this is Rhett from Rhett and Link, and he is deconstructed from Christianity. It was like a big deal. He just recently ended his podcast called Ear Biscuits, and he also is one of the co-hosts for Good Mythical Morning.
Let's talk about what's going on in Minnesota. You know, sometimes you're at like a coffee shop or on a plane and somebody is watching a movie in front of you or next to you. And of course, you can't hear it, but you can kind of see a little bit of the movie and you kind of get an idea of what's going on by seeing a scene or two. Well, if what is happening in Minnesota was a movie that somebody was watching in front of you, and you saw the scene with what happened to Renee Good, you think you get an idea of maybe what the movie was about, of who the bad guys were? And if you didn't, what about when you saw the next scene of what happened to Alex Preddy? Do you think at that point you would know who the bad guys are? And then what if the person watching the movie said, hey, I want you to watch this with me, and you put in a headphone, and then you watch the next scene, which was the people who were responsible for what happened to Alex Preddy lying about him and lying about what happened in order to justify their actions? Would there be any doubt in your mind as to what this movie was about and who the bad guys were? So here's my legitimate question. If you're one of the people who you're watching this movie along with all of us, and you have not yet figured out who the bad guys are, what is it going to take? What do you need to see to figure out what this movie is about?
Okay, I really like story narratives because I think they're really important. And I think he's really right on this. Like, when we watch a show, this is why, you know, the joke in the anime community is like, how are we all watching the same anime, not coming away with the same conclusion? Like, how do you not understand that, like, you would be the bad guys? Like, how do you not understand that Luffy would literally fucking hate you? Like, how do you not understand this? Okay? Like, how do you not understand that, like, okay, but there is this disconnect between story that I think is why I love it so much. You have to know who you are in the story. You have to know why it's happening the way it's happening. And this includes people who think they're good. All of us are responsible for how the way the way that the world is. So all of us have to do something better. And that's why even when you're the good guy, you could be the bad guy, right? Okay. So, but I think like, this is what I want to encourage all of us to do. And this is why I'm taking it so seriously that, like, okay, Brittany, by like 40, we have to really fucking grow up. Like, because I have been enjoying my life in a big way. I have been showing up on stream and making your mom jokes. But I think in many ways, like, I do want to be a more serious, not serious, like ego serious, but like responsible. I want to be responsible. And responsibility is scary because that means you have to show up better. Because I know a lot of us think we're responsible, but guys, right now, a lot of us are really not being responsible. We're just feeling responsible because we're watching TikToks. We feel responsible because we feel like life is hard. I can't even pay my bills. I hear you 100%. But wouldn't it be nice if we all just became like 5% more responsible? You know, why are we having kids? Why are we doing what we're doing? How are we holding our family accountable? Are we deconstructing the patriarchy within our family structure systems? Are we challenging homophobia and transphobia? Like, all of these things connect, okay? Like, all of these things will always happen forever. But even for me, a big part of this growth has been like really challenging the elders in my community and saying like, hey, you want to be responsible. You want the title of elder. You don't want to be disrespected, but you're disrespectful right now. Your bigotry is disrespectful. You can't ask me to respect you when your whole premise of existence and garnering respect is on the backs of minorities, even your own people, okay? So for me, the only reason I'm looking at 40 is because it's 3 years away from me. That's a more than enough time. think of where I am now. And in 3 years, if I don't get better, is that not a decline? Now, you might be 45 now or 55 now, and you might be starting that journey. That's valid. But I've already started the journey. So imagine I turn 40 and I'm not any more grown than I am now. Like, that's a decline. And I'm not here to decline. I'm here to get better, less bad every day, right? So when we have, you know, sort of these challenging conversations, we always have to understand ourselves and like, are we actually being better people? Are we being kinder and more compassionate? And are we also building a space to voice our frustration and anger? Because you have to be able to voice your frustration and anger as well. Go to therapy, talk to friends, make sure you have safe spaces where you're like, I am so frustrated with people right now, but make sure you pay attention to the language you use, because we know scientifically that like language can matter. It's significantly builds an impression on our brains. So make sure you're angry for the world and not at the world. Okay? For the world, not at the world. But if you are frustrated watching people in charge, elders in the community, not fucking show up and be the adult in the room, congratulations, you're next. Okay? Like, you're next. So how are you going to show up every day and do a little less harm? Right? And that's really difficult. Because I'm sure in an ideal world, all of us just want to have a job, pay our bills, come home to our families, kick up our feet and watch some fucking One Piece, right? And that is some people's life. Like some people's life right now, because the world isn't always in turmoil. Okay, the world is always in turmoil and not every place is in turmoil, which is how the world is supposed to and has been. Not supposed to be, but it is the reality of the world. For some people, they get to do that right now. Just like when people say, let's make America great again, they're imagining a time where it was peaceful, as if other minorities weren't going through it. Guys, we've never lived in a time in our life where somebody wasn't being genocided or in trouble or war wasn't happening or somebody wasn't being discriminated against. There were no good times. There will be no good times in which we are all able to enjoy our lives. And yet some of us must enjoy our lives. You must allow yourself to rest. You must give yourself permission to watch Netflix, and you must give yourself an accountability that says show up and do something. You have to do both of those things, you know? Okay? Because at the end of the day, you exist and then you don't exist anymore. Okay? We're all going to die. We're only here for a short time. You have to do both of those things. I know right now it might not be your time to do those things. Okay? But it's somebody's. Like right now, I certainly don't recommend anybody in these bubbles who are busy focusing on these things probably go on vacation to Disneyland and go, tee-hee, like it's probably not the mood right now, right? I couldn't even imagine the idea of going on vacation right now. Like we're busy, we're in the middle of something. But for somebody somewhere, it's their time to go to Disneyland, which as crazy as that sounds, and it does sound crazy to me, it sounds absolutely crazy. That's somebody's life right now. Maybe they're dying of cancer. Maybe their kid is 5 years old and has leukemia, and this is their one chance. I don't know what their story is. Okay? But like, know where you are in the story. It's very, very important. And it also will free you from the feeling of feeling like it will always be this way. Because guys, it is always this way. But we still got to do something about it. You know? Like, we still have to do something about it. So there was no Make America Great Again, and there is no Make America Great in the future. There's only ebbs and flows. So right now for Americans, it feels really hard, but in like 10, 15 years, it won't feel that hard. But for somebody else around the world, it is that hard. It's not always that hard everywhere, all the time, but it is hard, you know? I said, if this is human nature, is there something we can do about it? Yes, you can have a deeper relationship with your biological experience. You can start when you have babies, when you talk to your parents, when you talk to your neighbors. You can start really examining what it means to be a person and existing. And you can start really being serious about changing our relationship with self. Remember that a majority of the world is born into conservative homes. A majority of the world still believes in a God. A majority of the world is like turning anti-vax. A majority of the world is suffering under patriarchy, right? Like the world is literally unable, as it always has been, to decipher truth from fiction. And all of civilization was built on a primary understanding of fiction. So I'm saying we are just starting off, but we in 1,000 years will be much better off than we are now. We're not doing it for us. Nothing about being good now has anything to do with us. It has to do with the future. If you think you're being good now and you want to see the reward in your lifetime, you're not understanding your place in history. This is why we stand on the shoulders of giants, is why we go back to our ancestors and say they have suffered greatly, much more than we are suffering in a big way. And we still are going to do something so the kids in the future suffer less than we did. Don't be your boomer parents that says, well, I suffered, so you have to suffer. No, I suffered, so you don't have to suffer. And yet we know all people suffer always. You have to have a better relationship with suffering. We are very unwise with our suffering. So my goal philosophically is to move us in a direction, if possible. I'm not making a prescription. I'm making a suggestion. You can take it or not. To learn to suffer wisely. Because life itself is suffering. Every time you bring a baby into the universe, you are basically saying, good luck, kid. Welcome to suffering. And you're still going to do it, aren't you? You're going to have a baby. You're going to do it. Your family's going to have a baby. You're going to do it. As human beings have always done it before. So every time you make love and you bring a baby into the universe, know that you are saying to that child, I love you. Welcome to existence. Welcome to paying bills and genocides and famines and anti-vaxxers and flat earthers and bigoted people. Welcome to this world that I think is so hard. Hey, why don't you join me? If you are truly suffering in the world, then start with maybe talking about whether or not we should bring a baby into it. And then start with asking yourself, how can it be less bad today? Okay, imagine being on hard mode and then you decide to bring a baby into hard mode, which you know for a fact you are doing. And I know for a fact that this is a systematic problem as well, that Republicans have made it so people are not getting the education they need, that global populations around the world are also falling prey to rape and assault and a lack of education and religiosity built by patriarchy. Know that I understand, because we live in a gendered world, which we shouldn't anyways, that women feel they are not fulfilled and men feel they are not fulfilled until they have children. Everything happening right now is the consequence of all of those structural systems. And I'm saying this is the symptom of the structure. Redo the structure, or you will have this time and time again, as we always have in the past, and we will moving into the future. Okay? To help us further this conversation, we're going to watch this video about religious leaders living a double life as ICE agents. Let's take a pause. I'll come back. We'll talk about it. If you guys want to ask questions while I'm away, I can come back and answer them. Okay? 2-second break. Okay, what'd I miss? What are you guys talking about in chat? Let's see. Super chat by Spooky. Serious and generous work. Thank you, Brittany. Thank you. Appreciate you. Appreciate you so much. Okay, let me pause Elvin's beautiful music. Links in the description. For any of the music you hear, I use on stream. Let's see. Discord said, love you, Spooky. We all love Spooky. Thank you. Let me see. I will say, I want to make it clear because I think like, I want to make it clear, but I feel like even if I repeat myself, I might not. But philosophy is holding two contradictory thoughts at the same time. Like the wisdom found through philosophy is holding on to those things at the same time. It's finding harmony in the contradiction. So like take your time, but do it now. You're perfect the way you are, but you got to work on it, right? You're perfect the way you are, but you know you should change, right? Like it's holding on to the reality that like we're so privileged and lucky to be alive and life is hard. Everybody suffers. Some people suffer more, but we can't keep, deciding the people who suffer more are the only people who matter, right? All suffering matters, even when those privileged suffer. Like, this is the hardest part about philosophical work, but it is the thing that I feel like is deeply missing from the world because philosophy is boring. It's hard. You have to read a lot. You have to dissect language. You have to actually be interested in changing. Everything about philosophy is hard. And then the boys on the internet who even love philosophy, they water it down to the most ridiculous self-help slogan they can put on an Instagram or a tweet. And they think that's what philosophy is. Philosophy is an embodied experience of deep philosophical change, the love for wisdom. It should show up in your life. Your life should look different. Your life should not look necessarily rich or bigoted. It should look fulfilled and whole. And yes, even great philosophers of the past were deeply flawed because all humans are flawed, but not all philosophy is good philosophy. There's also bad philosophy, philosophy that is bigoted, because philosophy itself is like a very interesting word that we use to sort of encompass a framework of understanding and belief. Okay? So you have to also live in a world where philosophy is one thing and it's all things. It's specific, but it's all encompassing. This is why it is so hard though, because it almost sounds like you're talking in abstract until you really get it. And then you're like, oh, I got it. But you do, it's supposed to feel abstract. It's supposed to feel almost like, oh, but there's something here. So you have to do something. Even if humans never change, you still have to do something. Right? Now, when I say you should still do something, I mean only if you're interested in harm reduction. Obviously, if you're not interested in that, I don't even know why you're watching this channel. I assume if you're watching this channel, you might be attempting to harm reduce. So then in that case, you must, because it's a part of that framework, assuming that's your framework, right? Okay. Chat says, can I just say I thought I didn't like philosophy because I thought it was all bro philosophy, but Brittany made me realize I have always liked philosophy. So thanks to Brittany. Hey, thanks to you. You're the one who stayed and listened, right? But yeah, I think a lot of people, because a lot of bro philosophy is just the worst thing ever. It's so dehumanizing. And I think that's why it's been so pushed by the patriarchy, because bro philosophy works within patriarchal constructs. And Western philosophy in particular is really pushed because it reinforces the oppressive worldview that the quote Western philosophy bubbles like to push on everybody. Right? It's not that you can't learn from reading them. You should read all philosophers, even bad philosophers. But ultimately, it's about winning. And philosophy isn't about winning. That's politics. Politics is about winning at any cost, which is why Democrats always play games with MAGA. They're willing to play footsie with them. Okay? Philosophy says the meaning of man is valuable enough to discuss it for thousands of years and still to question the meaning of man. It is so important that we understand it is so amazing that we even exist, and it also isn't special. It is both things. You know those little microbugs we all have all over our skin? You know how we have microbugs all over our eyelashes and stuff? We are the microbugs in the universe. And yes, the universe, when zoomed out, doesn't see us and doesn't identify us, but we exist and we're important. We're not that important, but we're important, okay? It's very Horton Hears a Who, Like, but we are these microbugs. Like, that is us. That's my belief. And I understand that in your mind, you're thinking, ew, gross. But yeah, sometimes I see people and I go, ew, gross. Sometimes I look at a person and a spider and I don't know which one to squish first, you know? So yeah, like we have to value the fact that we exist and then not give ourselves such a big pat on the back that we forget that we are as important as the rock and the tree and the creature and all of the other things, you know? So it's like all of those things have to work in relationship to the other. With that said, let's watch, this is YouTuber Not the Good Girl. We've watched her before. And this is a 18-minute video on the overlap between religious people and ICE agents and how I say you should be very critical of your churches and your religions. Again, I want to hold patriarchal religions accountable without becoming bigoted. Right? So when Christians go after Islam, it's like, no. Christians have no place to go after Islam. Because Christians and Islam, like, you guys are all friends. What do you mean? Right? When Christians use Islam as a reason to convince you to be bigoted towards Muslims, they are just tricking you, because Christianity and Islam and Judaism and all these patriarchal religions, at the end of the day, there's a man at the head and everybody else is at the bottom, even if they say otherwise. And though I agree and support your right to be those religious people, I do not philosophically agree with them, though I think they can be helpful. They're ultimately patriarchal, right? And so you can't allow one group to convince you the other group is evil. That's how Palestine is getting so fucked right now, because the West is so afraid of Muslims. They really think if Palestinians had the power, they would kill all of us. Palestine, this little place on the map, this little place that's just like, the fuck did we do? Literally, they're like, the fuck? Like, what do you think why do you think that's going to happen? Because that's what you would do. Because when given the opportunity and the superpower, you did do that. It doesn't mean everyone else is going to do it. And that's sort of the irony. Okay? But they're convincing you it's true because they're Muslims, and you're so afraid of Muslims that you think it's true. As if Muslims aren't just Christians with different shoes and different clothes. That's what I'm saying. Like, you guys have to fully accept this, and then we can see change in the universe. Until you fully actually understand that men are not born evil because they're men, but men as a system are a serious problem, the world cannot change. Because I've seen enough liberals, especially in my chat, talk about how like men are born biologically like evil, it's in their nature. And I'm just like, girl, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And yes, chat says the new Gaza plan announced. We're going to cover Palestine and stuff this week as well. We're going to go over everything. We're going to cover it. Okay. So again, when we have these conversations, actually chat says Christians have more in common with Muslims than they do atheists, which is why Richard Dawkins and all these quote atheist people who are siding with Christian over Palestinians or Muslims or whatever. It's the irony is not lost on me. That so much for these great atheist leaders who are going to take us out of patriarchal religions. They like patriarchy. They just don't like it that when it's coming from the Quran. You know, that's the thing. That's what's so insidious about patriarchy. It's the same people like Sam Harris who say, I care about women. I care about women in Afghanistan. I care about women in these countries. Really? You don't seem to care about women in this country? Okay. That's kind of the problem. All right, let's go ahead and watch this video.
Loving the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind is first, but it's tethered to loving your neighbor as yourself. The first cannot but lead to the second. We see throughout the Bible that love is tied to action. Love is evidenced by action.
Oh, shit. Oh.
This is 5-year-old Liam Ramos. Liam was seized.
Oh, Habibi, they took him. Look at this little babino. That's what I'm saying. Like, bro, how do you sit here and kidnap this little boy?
By ICE officers and is now believed to be in detention in Texas.
18th, 2026. It was a quiet Sunday morning in St. Paul, Minnesota for the parishioners of Cities Church. They had no idea what was about to unfold. Their hymns.
Well, she put out a message on the bottom of the screen saying no AI used on this channel. I think that's a little crazy that we even have to say that, but I think it's important because people literally were like, Brittany, you're using AI on your videos. And as far as I know, I'm not using AI, like the bad AI. Obviously, we're all using AI. Everything is AI. I don't know what to tell you guys. But I think that is so funny that she had to say that. Like, I'm not like typing things into AI and generating photos and then, whatever else. I've done it in the past, but like, that's not the primary use of my videos. Most of my videos are literally like B-roll of real people that people think is AI. And I'm like, it's not AI. That's a real person. Anyways, I just thought that's what I'm saying. Like, we are in a crisis. We are in a crisis where people want to do the right thing, but they don't even know like what the right thing is. And I just think like we need to focus.
Had ended and congregants settled into their seats, expecting scripture, reflection, and reassurance. What they weren't expecting was confrontation. At 10:30 a.m., as the service began, the stillness broke. A line of protesters moved down the aisles, not running, not violent, but deliberate. Their voices cut through the sanctuary as they chanted ICE out and justice for Renee Good, the 37-year-old Minneapolis mother of 3 who was murdered by an ICE agent on January 7th. Renee loved to sing and write poetry, 2 things that were probably enjoyed by many in that congregation. But the parishioners weren't thinking about songs and poetry. They were staring wide-eyed at the 36 or so strangers who had just walked into their church. The words of the protesters echoed against the walls of the Southern Baptist Church that preached love, obedience, and moral clarity, yet quietly employed a man whose day job was commanding raids, wrongful arrests, and forced disappearances across the Midwest. People taken off streets, from jobs, and ripped from their homes under the authority.
ICE took her husband. That's what the text says.
Of the state.
You're interfering.
Good. Renee Good. Renee Good. Renee Good.
I'm going to go ahead and mute this person who said lefties are always on the wrong side of history. Literally proven time and time again. Absolutely not true. But thank you for being here. Blocked.
Renee Good. Renee Good. Renee Good. Renee Good. Ice out. Ice out. Ice out. Ice out. Ice out.
The protesters were there for one reason, to expose a contradiction. At the center of it stood David Easterwood, one of the pastors at Cities Church. David also serves as the acting field office director for ICE, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, in St. Paul. In that role, David helps lead the very agency responsible for recent raids, family separations, and detentions sweeping through Minnesota and neighboring states. To the protesters, this wasn't abstract politics. This was blood-on-the-ground reality. Local activist Nakima Levy-Armstrong led the group toward the pulpit, where another Cities Church pastor was preaching that morning. The protesters' message was intentional. If the church claimed to follow Jesus, then it could not feign ignorance while one of its leaders enforced a system of terrorizing the vulnerable. Several protesters later described the action as moral intervention, an interruption meant to force visibility where silence had been carefully maintained. The lead pastor was visibly rattled and couldn't regain control of the room. There was no sermon, just tension, confusion, and a sudden reckoning for congregants who, by their own admission, had never been told that a senior church figure was also one of the figureheads in ICE.
Yeah, I think you guys are discussing whether or not it's ethical to go into churches to protest. I think the circumstance has to be very specific. I think this might be one of them for sure. Where like if the leader of the church is a pedophile, if the leader of the church is a rapist, if the leader of the church is an ICE agent, if the leader of the church is like a terrorist, if the leader of the church is like, I think the issue is like, do we have the discernment to know when to go into religious buildings and when not to go into religious buildings? Because of course we've seen MAGA people or conservatives protest mosques because they think they're terrorist organizations when they're not. So then you have to be very careful. And this is why we have to, as a community, have the discernment to say why we're here. Do we have the evidence? And this is why it's important, right? Okay, because I do think that people give themselves too much credit in knowing that they're doing the right thing. All of us are responsible for double checking that we're doing the right thing. All of us. And sometimes the right thing can be this, right? Rise Again with the super chat. Thank you so much. Says Jesus flipped tables and scourged people for less. Yes, he did. Well, I don't know if it was less. They were gambling in the house of the Lord. It's kind of like a no-no. But, I was making a little joke right there. But yeah, like, thank you for the super chat. Ultimately, do we have the discernment as a community to make sure we do the right thing? And I do think this is one of those moments where like, does the congregation even know? Can the congregation even consent if they don't know their leader is doing this? And they're giving him money. Do they even know who they're giving money to? Churches need to be able to give informed consent, like not churches, but parishioners need to be able to give informed consent about where their money is going to.
Service ended early. Outside the church walls, the context was far darker. In recent weeks, ICE operations in Minnesota had escalated. Hundreds of agents detained thousands of people, including legal residents and U.S. citizens. Nationwide data showed that 73% of ICE detainees had no criminal convictions. Families vanished overnight. Children came home from school to empty houses. Communities braced for the sound of boots at the door. ICE was already under scrutiny. Lawsuits had been filed and protests were spreading. On January 14th, only a week after Renee Good's death, a family of 8 were trying to get home from their...
And for the record, I do think all religious institutions should pay tax because I do think they're ultimately businesses. And so many people do tax evasion by opening up churches. You need to give every reason for, you need to explain to me how churches who are so politically involved aren't also being taxed. Because remember, I grew up Catholic and in the church, and trust me, they talked about politics every damn week.
Son's basketball game when they got caught in the middle of ICE and protesters. It was nighttime and hard to see. An ICE agent yelled at them, "Get the fuck out of here."
This is the Jackson family?
Said, "We're trying." Before they knew it, ICE had thrown a tear gas canister under their car. As it went off, their car lifted up and slammed to the ground. All the airbags deployed and their locks auto-locked, trapping them inside. Tear gas filled their car and the family couldn't see. The parents tried to feel their way around the car and were finally able to unlock a door, getting all of their kids out except for the 6-month-old infant who was trapped in his car seat. Protesters rushed over to help, and the family was ushered inside a community member's house for protection. Someone finally got the baby out of his car seat, and when he was given to his mother, Destiny Jackson, his eyes were closed and he wasn't breathing. She said he had foam around his mouth and looked lifeless. Destiny quickly began giving him CPR, while Good Samaritans poured milk on the other children's eyes. Their oldest child was only 11. The baby wasn't responding. Destiny told her 6-month-old, "Wake up, you have to." She would later tell news outlets she knew she was going to give him every breath she had. He eventually opened his eyes and began breathing. He, along with 2 of her other children with asthma, were taken by ambulance to the hospital. Meanwhile, the man who helped oversee and orchestrate this chaos against his own fellow citizens was getting up on his high pulpit and preaching.
Political extreme.
Oh my God, bro. Okay, ready? Oh, I don't even want to hear him talk. Okay.
Own fellow citizens was getting up on his high pulpit and preaching.
Political extremists are vying to control the center of the country. Protests sparked by calls for justice devolve into riots across the nation's cities. Cultural and countercultural forces are pulling in opposite directions. Racial tensions are thick in the air, and American life is fractured, assuming it was ever whole. Early in the tumult of the decade, a pastor stood on the National Mall in Washington, D.C., and told the crowd of a dream for the country.
No.
Of justice and equality before the law.
He is not about to.
And of unity before Almighty God. More than 50 years removed from that decade, one may scan the American landscape and say, "'Twas just a dream."
Was he literally MLKing it right now? No.
Brother Martin, just a dream.
Oh my God. He said Martin. Don't say it like that. You don't know him.
There's plenty to make one wonder if there can ever be true unity in diversity. I have good news for you. It is possible.
For the protesters, Pastor David...
Oh! This is like the Charlie Kirk and Malcolm X AI videos. It's like, girl, I'm gonna scream. That's great. That's what I'm saying. Anytime a white person, especially conservative, talks about MLK, I'm like, shut it down. Shut it down. I know what this is. Shut it down. Absolutely not.
Wasn't just a contradiction. He was the breaking point. According to Christian doctrine, Jesus was a figure who defended the persecuted, overturned systems of exploitation by literally flipping tables in temples, and stood with...
Oh, shout out to Super Chat earlier who mentioned the tables.
Those that society had cast aside.
Okay, guys, please stop romanticizing Jesus. Jesus took hookers away from their pimps and became a pimp himself. Stop, bro. Please, my feminist blood is boiling. My gender-bending body is screaming at you. Please stop romanticizing this man who literally only befriended people to then turn around and exploit them himself. Mary Magdalene was taken away from her pimp, and then Jesus was like, "Go out and work for me, bitch." Okay? With peace and love. He was literally, his 12 apostles were between the ages of younger teens to older mid-20s. He was 33 when he was crucified. He was at best a con man who walked around the streets and was like, I'm God. Okay? With peace and love, he is not the person you want him to be. Okay? People who, they just love, like, he just loves to, people love to sit here, okay, and talk about how Jesus was this great man who he didn't hang out with prostitutes because he thought they were cool. He said, stop your ways and follow me. Okay, he told Peter to leave his family and follow me. Peter was a father with kids. Okay, like, with peace and love, he literally was just recruiting people from their houses, their families, their jobs, and saying, like, drop everything and follow me. Okay, Peter was crucified upside down. Okay. So, like, when we sit here and we talk about how Jesus would never have appreciated you, stop trying to appeal to Christianity to get Christians to be less bigoted when Christianity is a patriarchal religion whose Bible and book literally has slavery, genocide, homophobia. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know why we keep trying to do this thing where we keep trying to appeal to, like, Jesus. Jesus who? You know? Jesus who? Stop doing it. It's unnecessary. See him for what he is, a man at best that we kind of understand a little bit with these made up stories that were written 300 years after he died to tell us about his great, quote, connection to the earth and God and all that good jazz that just basically turned people into bigots 2,000 years later. Get off the Jesus horse. Okay? Get off the Jesus horse.
According to the book they hold sacred, Leviticus chapter 19, verse 33 through 34 states, "When a foreigner resides among you in your land, do not mistreat them. The foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt."
Okay, don't pick and choose which Bible verses we use to use Christian. That's what I'm saying. See how we all have to pick and choose? So the Christians pick and choose which Bible verses work for them, and the atheists pick and choose which works for them. Stop writing Jesus's dick. Yes, chat. Brittany says stop writing that Jesus D. Stop writing it, girls. He's just a man.
But you see, David Easterwood is the white nationalist type of Christian, the kind whose hypocrisy causes people to flee the church and turn others into proud atheists. He's the kind of Christian who pretends Jesus was blue-eyed with white skin, because if he was honest, he would have to face the fact that the same people he snatches off the streets and puts in camps look a lot like the guy he pretends to worship.
What do you think of it? I'm a Christian here that wants to praise the Lord with my son, and now I got to go home. I'm sorry that you guys are so angry.
I'm just chronicling. I'm not with the group.
Oh, what do I have to
Okay, I don't hear Don Lemon say shit either, because the way he uses misogyny in his clips to own women on the right, I don't even want to hear it, Don Lemon. But Don Lemon is using his platform to bring a lot of attention to everything happening. But I don't want to hear him speak either with his misogyny. That's what I'm saying. Everyone goes, oh, Brittany, you have to build bridges with people. I will meet you halfway. If you eradicate bigotry, we can, like, you know what I mean? We can have a conversation.
Can you understand why they're angry?
Okay.
I don't understand any of this because I'm a simple man. I'm a simple man who loves the Lord.
I'm a simple man who loves the Lord. I'm a simple man who, like, promotes patriarchy.
Father, this is what we look forward to, is coming and being with our family and praising Jesus, and that's not something that we have to run away from. So this is kind of a bad day for us. But, we're going to heaven, so that's the best news we got.
Do you understand that some of these folks feel voiceless?
I don't understand, because right now I'm so upset right now. I don't really have I'm thirsty, and I can't think very clearly. So what I want to do is just say, we love you. My son and I love you guys. And
I'm a journalist. They're activists.
Did you guys hear Don Lennon or Don Lemon? Don Lemon is his name. This isn't Don Lennon.
Simplest thing we can say is that we love you guys.
What do you mean, you guys?
Well, whoever's here in this house.
Okay.
We don't distinguish between Christian and non-Christian. We love everyone. We want everyone to come to heaven.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. We want folks to go to heaven. And if we need to talk about these things, then this isn't the time for that, really.
But don't you think until we go to heaven, if you believe in that there should be some sort of peace here on earth, and that people should have agency, and we shouldn't be beating people up off the street, and we should be abiding by the Constitution?
I think that's just a little bit loaded for me right now.
Oh, it's like
what
a
you're
bit,
doing.
it's a little loaded
I don't want
for
to
me.
interview right now. I don't want to interview. I just want to tell you guys I love you. I don't need to interview right now because...
Bro, I just love people, bro.
I want to be with my son. It's Sunday. It's time for rest and for renewal. I would like to answer your question, but I just can't right now.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Journalist Don Lemon was present at the scene when the protest took place inside the church, and once the news got out, some church leaders condemned the protest immediately, calling it disruptive, inappropriate, and shameful. National religious figures echoed those sentiments, framing the incident as an attack on worship rather than a demand for accountability. Calls went out to pray for the church, for the children present, and for the community's peace. Notably absent were prayers for the families detained that same week, or the parents taken in the night, or the children breathing tear gas. And while Christian leaders called for churches to be respected, they weren't calling for the respect of our courthouses, hospitals, and schools, all places that ICE has aggressively invaded. Minneapolis police are getting sick of ICE as well, as their officers of color are being targeted by ICE too.
Recently, as the last 2 weeks, we, as law enforcement community, have been receiving endless complaints about civil rights violations in our streets from U.S. citizens. As this went on over the past 2 weeks, we started hearing from our police officers the same complaints as they fell victim to this while off duty. Every one of these individuals is a person of color who has had this happen to them. In Brooklyn Park, one particular officer that shared her story with me was stopped as she passed ICE going down the roadway. When they boxed her in, they demanded her paperwork, of which she's a U.S. citizen and clearly would not have any paperwork. When she became concerned about the rhetoric and the way she was being treated, she pulled out her phone. In an attempt to record the incident, the phone was knocked out of her hands, preventing her from recording it. The officer had their guns drawn during this interaction. And after the officer became so concerned, they were forced to identify themselves as a Brooklyn Park police officer in hopes of slowing the incident and de-escalating the incident down. The agents then immediately left after hearing this, making no other comments, no other apologies, just got in their vehicles and left. I wish I could tell you that this was an isolated incident. In fact, many of the chiefs standing behind me have similar incidents with their off-duty officers. This isn't just important because it happened to off-duty police officers, but what it did do is we know that our officers know what the Constitution is.
Yeah, Chet says ICE is so bad it's making police officers look like the safe ones. Check this out. Yeah, that's a big part of the whole dilemma. Is like, I understand like people want to like reform how we see people, but it's like you're gonna have to do a lot. This is National Guard handing out donuts.
And you're with the Minnesota National Guard?
Yeah, we are. Yes, we are.
Why was this important for you guys to do today?
It's a demonstration of safety and security. We're here to help.
Because the dilemma is like, again, a uniform can be a scary thing. It can signal safety, it can signal health, and it can signal good things, but it can also be a signal of unsafety. So I understand that they're trying to, at this, like, the problem is like, when the military talks about a brotherhood, sounds well and good until that brotherhood is used against other people, right? Like, I'm going to protect my brother no matter what. Well, your brother is a rapist or a murderer, right? Like this idea of you go through something so traumatic together, you build a bond that gets you through 50 years. Yeah, but like, why are you going through something so traumatic that you build a bond over 50 years? Okay. And so there's that conversation. Yeah, Chad says we are watching the National Guard now. And now Brittany is talking about it. I think I have a delay. That was the National Guard. So they're handing out donuts and coffee, and they're trying to give people a sense of safety. But it is kind of one of those things where it's like, at the end of the day, you're all still, especially men, in uniforms, right? Like, as much as we want to believe men aren't inherently evil, and they're not, they are raised under a system that has them operating as a system and an extension of that system. And that's why men as a collective are so dangerous. And that is a global phenomenon that is not special to America. And I'm sick of men around the world pretending like they're better than American men. No, you're not, because men as a system are absolutely the reason women and girls, theys and thems, gay and trans, are absolutely facing so much pain and suffering, okay? I've seen the videos. I watch the videos where these people are targeted, where they're tied up in rivers and drowned to death, beaten to death. Okay, I make sure when they come across my feed to sit there in that moment and watch minority people get picked up by groups of men who are peacocking their way into killing their neighbors in the name of whatever they think is power or control or patriarchy or manliness or masculinity. Okay, it might be a different image if you send out a whole bunch of less threatening looking people to go help out. But I also think men who feel like, hey, I'm one of the good ones, I should be able to show up and not feel threatening. You have to understand, like, if you want to redo the image of men around the world, you have to start holding the men in your life accountable. That's why we're saying it's not just ICE, it's your fathers and your brothers. It's your church leaders. This is bigger than ICE. It's bigger than this administration. It's systems. We are facing a system. And so I tell you, like, it's your family members, your boyfriends and your husbands, the men you're making babies with. It's all of our someones. Okay?
They know what right and wrong is, and they know when people are being targeted. And that's what they were.
Federal officials soon escalated matters further. The Department of Justice announced an investigation into the church protest itself, citing potential violations of the FACE Act, a law historically used to prosecute protesters at abortion clinics. At the same time, ICE defended its conduct in court, using sworn statements from Pastor David himself, despite his absence from the scenes that triggered the lawsuits. His resume told the rest of the story. He joined ICE in 2015 as a deportation officer. Throughout the years, he received several promotions. By 2022, he became the assistant field office director. By 2024, he was acting director for a region spanning multiple states. From the pulpit, he preached compassion. From his desk, he approved enforcement.
That's why I say it has to be a combination of what you say and what you do. Like, actions are words and words are actions, but I'm going to pay attention to both. Do you practice what you preach? How many fucking men, especially on the left, sit here and say, like, well, it's not like I recommend my lifestyle to people. Like, I'm trying to, what I'm recommending is still good. It doesn't matter if do you practice what you preach? Does it show up in your life? And again, no one is perfect. I'm not asking you to be perfect. I would never ask you to be something impossible. But I'm saying, hey, I do have an expectation that you will practice what you preach. So let's go.
That tore families apart. City's Church traces its roots to a broader evangelical network that emphasized authority, hierarchy, and submission, so-called Baptist values. The protesters weren't there to vandalize. They weren't there to threaten. They were there to interrupt comfort, because comfort, in this case, came at someone else's expense. What the protesters did is just old-school civil disobedience. Civil disobedience is the nonviolent breaking of laws or rules that are considered unjust in order to expose their immorality and force change. The goal is to create a moral crisis so the public and those in power are forced to confront injustice. Before the civil rights movement, Black people were ignored by the courts, their peaceful requests were dismissed, and violence and intimidation against non-whites were routine. The civil rights movement sought to upend the injustice.
And great point. First of all, love this video so far. Chat says ICE hides their identity for a reason. Yeah, remember that. Remember that these men are hiding their faces for a reason. A lot of the white nationalists always show up with masks on. And I want to know who you are. We talked about this yesterday in chat. Should ICE agents or should Nazis or should other people in these groups lose their jobs? Companies have the right to not have bigoted people working there, given the fact that they could be a threat to everybody else. Now, I don't believe we should unhouse people, and this is why I believe in universal housing, because we have to have a place for people to be. And at the same time, I'm not saying everyone should lose their job. I'm saying we shouldn't even be in a society where you need to employ somebody who has these thoughts, because we should be fighting these thoughts when we have babies. But we're not. Bigotry is way a part of our relationship as our social relationship with one another, which is why all of us have to deconstruct our bigotry and prejudice. All of us, okay? Minority isn't enough. You have to deconstruct. Being a minority isn't enough. You don't get a pass because you're a minority, right? Like, everybody is at fault. It's not just white men, though we can understand there's a hierarchy here. It is all of us, okay? And that's why you will see Latino people and Black people and brown people sign up for ICE. It's why you will see my parents who were immigrated from Iraq, and you'll see them being MAGA. It's why you'll see Latino communities supporting Trump, and then, what's happening here now, okay? Because we want to believe, and especially when we talk about wanting to be like adjacent to whiteness, there's so much at play here. There's so much at play here. It's not simple, but it's fixable. It's not simple, but it's solvable. We can move society in a better direction, but it's going to take a lot of work forever. This is why people, by the way, check out politics. This is why people check out philosophy, for the record. I don't blame you. You're numbing yourself like with drugs. But I'm saying you don't have to numb yourself to also be at peace with existence. Guys, I wake up every day and I go to bed every day joyful. And that wasn't my life always, because I felt so burdened by the pain of the world that I was like, how am I ever supposed to be happy here? But the truth is that first I had to accept that everybody suffers always. And the universe has never been better than it is now. But that doesn't mean it's good or perfect, right? I'm so grateful to be alive now. I'm so grateful to be who I am. And I'm grateful. And I want to, you have to show gratitude for your life every day. Because the truth is like a lot of us are in incredible positions of privilege. A lot of us really are. Okay, globally. And so you have to accept that, and then you have to do something about it. Okay, it's not about comparing and contrasting. It's about accepting that you are just a living part of history. You are probably one of the billions of people that will never be remembered in history books. That doesn't mean you don't have to do something. Because as a collective, people remember things. And better to, it's not about being remembered either. I think that's such a male-focused idea. That's such a patriarchal idea, is to focus on being remembered. We shouldn't be remembered. Being remembered shouldn't be the motivation for doing something right. We should sit with ourselves and ask ourselves, in a world that doesn't have objective morality, because I don't believe in objective morality personally, what does it mean to be less bad today? Okay? And for those asking for the link of the video, absolutely. I've already liked the video myself, but I will link it in chat.
Justice with civil disobedience. That meant sitting where you were forbidden to sit, walking where you were forbidden to walk, and entering buildings you were barred from. The movement caused economic pressure through boycotting. People overwhelmed public spaces with marches. People willingly got arrested and refused bail so they could overcrowd the jails, thus causing more eyes and awareness on their movement. Activists would enter segregated white churches, walk to the front, and kneel to pray or sit quietly as a direct challenge to racial exclusion. Many were refused communion, physically removed, or arrested for trespassing. This became known as the Kneel-In movement in the early 1960s. These kneel-ins forced church congregations to confront segregation in a place claiming moral authority. People also intentionally disrupted courthouses, businesses, and political events. Why? Because injustice was being protected by polite silence and pearl clutchers. Nonviolent disruption was the point, and it made the people committing the injustice and their enablers deeply uncomfortable. But they also could.
Chat says, wait, two things. Chat says, my brother's going down a bigoted pipeline and I want to intervene, but there's a lot going on with me personally too. What should I do? You should do what you can and live by example. So when you guys check in with each other, hey bro, what are you up to? Oh, hey bro, man, I just went to therapy this week, had a great session with my therapist, eating better, reading this book, watching this YouTuber, reading this newspaper article. Share about how your life is improving and give him a curiosity that he'll be like, oh, tell me more about that, bro. What's that about? Oh, dude, I've been watching this girl named Brittany Simon. She's fucking fire, bro. You know what I mean? Like, talk about your life. Talk about your life and be the example that it's working for you. Show people that being on the side of history that's correct is worth it. Show people that life is worth it. Because if you are not even living a life worth living, then how the fuck are they going to be convinced? Do you know what I mean? If we cannot convince people by showing them this is the better way to be, because you really believe it is, and it's actually proof is in the pudding, then why in the world would they change? Because that's what they're looking for, girls. They're looking at us like, yeah, but you're miserable too. You're miserable too. So why should I be like you? Okay, great point. That's a great point. But I tell you this as somebody who's on the other side of it, not only am I not miserable, but I am joyful. Not only do I accept that life is hard, but I am happy to take the responsibility for that hard life. And that's what I say to my little bros when they call me and they go, bro, it's all fucking shit, bro. Like, it's all fucking existential dread. It's misery. And I said, I hear you. I'm on the other side of it. So you hit me up when you want to be on the other side of it. But I hear you. I agree. It is all of those things too. So, show them. Like, I'm plant-based for a year now. It's been a year now, girls. And when my brothers call me, they go, hey, you still doing that plant-based thing? I go, yeah, honestly, I had a great dinner last night. I send them food. I send them all my food pictures because, like, first of all, they look delicious. And second of all, it's just like, as a family that prides themselves in eating well, trust me, Assyrian food is some of the best food you'll ever have in your life. Okay. I definitely send them photos to be like, look, I remade this Assyrian dish, but vegan. Check it out. And they're like, oh, cool, bro. You sure it's good? I was like, it's good, bro. They're like, are you sure? Because that's what it's about. Okay. Chat said something else. Hold on. Though I think it depends on the job, whether or not someone should lose their job. Racist, honestly, like nurses or healthcare. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe too dangerous. Teachers, no. Maybe jobs without people. I'm not sure if you're saying teachers shouldn't lose their job if they're racist. But any job in which you are helping the population, you are holding on to strongly bigoted held beliefs, you need to be out of that job. If you're homophobic, transphobic, racist, bigoted, and you are serving the population, especially children, you are a danger to those children. Because, I saw a TikTok today that said, for the same reason white men joining the police force, white women become nurses. And I said, oh, fuck. Malpractice with Black mothers is so high in America. And you have to think about the people giving care to those Black families. You have to think about the people who are in charge of those babies. How many white women have targeted Black children in what do they call them? Oh my God, I can't think of the word. After they give birth, So when we have these conversations, it's not to create, it's not to say that people who happen to be white and women and become nurses. It's the idea that women who are willing to marry and uphold patriarchy and white supremacy, who become caregivers, nurses, and teachers, will target, abuse, NICU, thank you, will target and abuse Black and brown children. We've seen it time and time again, right? At the end of the day, that's why I say to these women, be careful who your husbands are. Because if you marry a homophobic man, you are homophobic. You cannot sit here and tell me, oh, I'm not homophobic, but my husband is. Yes, you are. Oh, I'm not racist, but my boyfriend is. Yes, you are. Oh, I'm not transphobic, but yes, you are. Because partners are people we choose. Yes, you can say family is people you choose, but let's be so for real. Biologically speaking, it doesn't always work out that way, okay? Yes, family is people we choose, but you do have a connection with your family members. That's quite intense, okay? But generally, we want to break generational curses as well, because just like Black women have been also saying on TikTok, be careful about, quote, not talking to your MAGA family anymore, because you might be the only defensive line between your MAGA family and a Black and brown family. So remember that if you want to break generational curses, depending on the role you're playing in your family, you can't cut off contact with your family, but you can hold them to a higher standard, which is what I'm doing. I don't cut off my family, but I've been holding them to a higher standard, which involves, no casual conversations. So if you call me, we have to have serious conversations about problems until we get to the other side of things, right? And or sometimes you might have to cut off your family because they might actually be a danger to you and others, which I support. Okay? So stop dating racist, homophobic, transphobic people and stop thinking it's not a reflection of you. Start holding your family accountable, even family you love, whether you're Black or brown or immigrants, because speaking from an Assyrian background, whether we like it or not, there's colorism in our communities, there's racism in our communities, there's anti-Blackness in our communities, there's homophobia and transphobia in our communities. So it doesn't even matter who's white or Black at the end of the day if our family is being transphobic. We have to have those conversations, okay? So all of us are born into families who have problems. We all come from dysfunction. And on top of our personal problems, going back to what I was trying to explain earlier, now we have these systematic problems. Now we have these cultural problems. It's hard being a person. It is really, really hard to be a person. So think about it twice before having a baby. And also, if you bring a baby into the world, just make sure you have a good and strong village, because that child's going to need it.
Couldn't look away. As Martin Luther King Jr. put it, unjust laws lose legitimacy when they contradict basic human dignity.
It says 100 clergy members were arrested in Minneapolis. Oh, fuck. For protesting ICE on January 23rd. Holy fuck, 100? They were for protesting ICE. So this is the part of the religious community that is protesting ICE. So they were arrested. So some clergymen are working for ICE and some clergymen are protesting ICE. And only one group's getting arrested. Got it.
True crime stories often hinge on dual lives. Respectable facades masking darker truths. This one played out in daylight beneath stained glass, with no secret about the harm being done, only silence about who was doing it. Pastor David Easterwood. The protest forced that silence to crack, and when it did, the question wasn't whether a church service had been disrupted. The question was how many lives had already been.
I woke up, opened my eyes and looked out to the darkening skies. The world has gone crazy as blood fills the streets, still killed.
Okay, so I'll link the video again in chat. Great video, important to pay attention to because yep. Man. Okay. Girl, that was crazy. I liked the video, great video. But also this video couldn't get hyped because it was demonetized. It was suppressed because it was controversial. So that's why you couldn't hype my last podcast too. My last podcast about why conservative men are predators. Great podcast. You guys should definitely go check out the podcast channel. I'll link it in the chat. Please go check out my podcast channel. That channel does really good, but it gets crazily demonetized. So, and then you can't hype it because YouTube doesn't make any money off of demonetized videos. And so they don't promote it and they don't want you to, you know, okay. Let's watch this. Who is this from? This is the News Movement, the unexpected faces of the front line of the ICE raids. Let's watch this together. Hopefully we don't get trouble. Here we go.
What's your name? That's ICE. This is them. Where are your body cams? We're not impeding. We're recording.
Man, you guys know so much because you guys listen to TikTok. You should be in school, kid.
The teens tracking ICE. Oh my God.
We got a report that ICE is in a parking lot. So far, one car verified.
17 years old, Ben. Ben is 17. Community patroller. Homies. Okay. I don't really want this to be the responsibility of children. Adults need to stand the fuck up. Our kids should not be doing this. I'm not going to romanticize children fighting on the front lines. I'm not. I know we want to do this, but like our kids should not be doing this. This should not be their responsibility. And that's what I'm saying. Can the adults please stand up? And I know you want to, right? You want to be like, these are good kids. I'm so proud of them. These children should not be doing this.
We don't know if there's more. I would assume there probably are more, but we're going to go and try to get plates and any information we can document. Yeah, they're right over here. Okay.
In the same way I feel about watching those teenagers around the world fight their governments because the adults won't fucking pull their weight. That's what devastates me, is watching all these boys with their Luffy flags, right? That's devastating, okay? That's awful, okay? That's why the adults have to stand up. We have to do the work. We have to tell kids, you sit down. This is not your job. This is our job.
Oh. Don't block the vehicle in any video, Sam.
Ben and Sam Lumen are teenage brothers in the Chicago suburbs.
Okay. Watch out. Make sure you're not blocking the vehicle at all.
They spend their mornings tracking ICE agents.
And this is different than just a protest, guys, because look, my little brother and I, he was a minor. I remember he was living with me at a time when he was in high school, and he was like, hey, I'm going to leave school to go protest during the BLM's times. And I was like, go protest with BLM, just be safe. It's very different than this, right? It is very different than, you know, showing up and purposely like being in a place. Like he was in a much safer area. The protests were very chill at the time. It was a very different feeling. I'm not saying children shouldn't feel empowered. I'm saying children should be given an opportunity to be in the safer part of the protest. But the fact that we're willing to put our children's bodies on the line says more about us as adults than them. I'm proud of those kids, but they shouldn't be putting their lives on the line for us, right? Chat says maybe this is also a case of the kids doing it for attention because it might go viral. Maybe. And I do think there's a part of those boys. There's a boy group that's always chasing pedophiles. I do think they're doing it for views and they're doing it very unsafely. I don't know what these boys are doing it for. No. You said, I think this might be also a matter of the kids are doing this for attention because of how unusual it is, because there are many groups of adults doing this, but the videos aren't going to. That's not what I said. Reread my message. Hold on. I think this might also be a matter of the kids that are doing it are getting the attention because of how unusual it is, because there are many groups of adults. The kids doing it are getting the attention. You're saying, wait, so are you not? Did I not read it? Wait, so these kids are doing it for attention? Or the kids, like they might be thought of doing it for attention. Like people might think they're doing it for attention. Maybe the kids aren't doing it for attention. They're getting attention because they're kids. Oh, they're getting attention because they're kids. Oh, I hear you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because historically, it's been the students who stand up. Okay, hold on, pause. Do we all understand what I'm saying? That I'm scolding adults for putting kids in this position? Not saying that the youth haven't always had to do it. I'm saying the problem with the world is old people become stagnant. The problem with even your favorite content creators is that they become stagnant, right? Do we actually understand what I'm saying? I just want to make sure that I'm heard too. I'm saying that it's a testament to the world that adults consistently become stagnant, and then the youth have to be the ones to stand up because we can't rely on the adults to keep up, right? Okay, I just want to make sure, because I certainly don't want to disparage students. I don't want to make young people feel like they can't do anything or make them feel even more disempowered. I'm just critical of adults, you know, who put kids in this position because they won't grow the fuck up. Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay.
Buckle up, here we go. Our position in this is to get that initial filming. You show up with cameras and they're gone. We have other patrollers that are gonna monitor their direction. The biggest thing right now is I don't know where they went. When we have a lot of responders out there, it makes it difficult for ICE to operate because we're constantly getting the location of their vehicles. So they have to spend their day kind of dodging us instead of committing these illegal arrests because they know the cameras will be there whenever they get out of their car.
Oh, interesting. So they're basically being inconvenient to ICE in order for them to be unable to do their jobs.
And getting the names of anybody being arrested is really helpful because if we don't get the names of these people, then they just disappear and they're gone. They're very unpredictable and violent. So
16. This is Sam. He's 16.
I'm trying to keep an eye on what they're going to do and be one step ahead of them.
Everybody get in your car and follow them. Back away from our vehicles now. Back it up.
How did you guys get involved in this patrolling work? It was a morning in September. My mom turned my light on and turned my fan off and said, Ben, ICE is in West Chicago. They just made multiple arrests. We have to go. We've learned a lot about what's really happening and how immigration works and a lot of how messed up the legal process is throughout it. How much the Trump administration has just torn apart families and destroyed lives through their operations.
The Trump administration says they're prioritizing violent criminals for arrests and deportation.
They say they're targeting violent criminals, but time after time we find out that these people who've just been taken in front of our eyes and put in handcuffs and shoved into a car have no violent background.
What's your phone number?
These are our neighbors being taken. They're members of our community. It's evil. They're just people with families that are trying to live.
Asking him what's his phone number. Oof. Like, it is so sad. Like, it is, and it should make you feel sad. Like, I want people to watch these videos and allow themselves to feel and imagine that was you and your family, and imagine this was happening to you and how just that would feel. I want you to put yourself in those people's shoes, okay? I need you to put yourself in those people's shoes, right? And then I want you to imagine how heartbreaking that must feel, that like there's nothing you can do, no matter how well you play the game or what paperwork you have, or if you're a citizen, it's not going to save you when people who claim to have power over you come in and make a decision for you. And so just to like have people there, and I do commend all these people who are recording, who are saying, what's your name, who are trying to contact people. Like, that is it's so powerful and it's so important, right? And so I need you to do that. Like, I need you to do that prescription. I mean, I need you to imagine when you're not there, because maybe you're not even near something happening like this, to imagine when you're watching it on the news, how scary that must feel to be that person, to have somebody knock through your window and grab you, or to be in the car with your mother or father or grandfather, and to have somebody do this to your family members. It's really important. And I know we've always had discussions about, you know, why can't you just do it because they're people? No, you can't either, right? Like, people need to humanize people by relating it to something they know, or people they know, or imagery they understand. And it takes a great skill. Like, listen to me when I say this. I have this skill, but most people do not have this skill, because I can also do this for Nazis and MAGA people. I can humanize any person, put any person in front of me, and I will cry for their pain. That is an incredible amount. Like, that's a skill. And most people do not have that skill. You can't even do this for, you know, people you don't like. I could do it for Trump even. You want me to do it? I could cry for Trump. All I have to do is imagine baby Trump and his life and the abuse he had at the hands of his father, and I could cry for that man. I would never ask you to go that far. Go far enough, though, to imagine that you are being pulled over, if that's what it takes. Imagine it's your kid, if that's what it takes. Just, you don't have to empathize with everybody, but try to empathize as hard as you can by just putting yourself in those people's shoes, okay?
Since September, federal agents have roamed the Chicago area, arresting thousands of people. Operation Midway Blitz, as ICE calls it, is part of an aggressive immigration crackdown across the country. The Trump administration insists that they're targeting violent criminals.
We're doing the worst of the worst, always first.
But their own records show otherwise. According to a document from the Department of Justice, out of 614 people arrested during Midway Blitz, only 2.6% were deemed a high public safety risk.
Oh, brother.
Ben, we have 2 cars going east, and we're going to go try to
check if they stop at the gas station or an apartment complex nearby.
Are you sure that those two cars are ICE vehicles?
So we've checked the license plates and they match previous arrests.
I think the count was up to around 95 plates that Sam and I have verified at different encounters.
That's a lot of ICE vehicles for the Chicago suburbs.
We're with ICE patrols. What are you guys seeing? We heard that there was a Denali in the area.
There's a Denali, I guess, somewhere in the corner by where that truck is going over there.
Got you. Okay.
Pickup truck.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Oh, there they are. Oh, they're like fully out of the vehicle now too. Oh, and there's guns, big guns. That's terrifying. Okay, let's. That's big gun.
Jesus Christ! Look at that imagery, bro. Look at the imagery. That's so scary. That's so fucked up. That's so fucked up. Look at that imagery. You can't see his face. He's got a fucking gun in his hand. That is so fucked up.
So we just saw the end of an arrest. Community members here say officers pulled up to this car and two men ran from it. They grabbed one. People here are too afraid to talk to us, but they said that the man who was arrested repeatedly told them he had to work from it, but they put him in the car anyways.
We're gonna stay here.
You think?
We're gonna hold down this area.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm gonna keep GoPro rolling. I turn my phone off. We're gonna hold down this area.
There's been a lot of ICE activity over the last month. They've been terrorizing the town, picking up people left and right. I grew up in the United States, but I mean, for the first time in a long time,
Guys, as I was really shocked and shaken after Charlie Kirk's death, even though I hated everything he stood for. Can you cry for Charlie Kirk? Not for Charlie Kirk specifically, but I cried for everybody who had to see him die. And I cried for his kids. But I didn't cry for Charlie. I felt the worst for the people who watched him die. I felt bad at the amount of violence that had to occur. I think I cried for people more than Charlie. Like, I can't really cry for Charlie, right? I don't think you need to cry for every individual. I think you need to cry for the circumstance. The circumstance was devastating. But crying for Charlie Kirk, like, yeah, that's not going to happen for me personally. But I could cry for a version of Charlie. 18-year-old Charlie, picked up and groomed by conservatives. The Charlie who's maybe doubting his work. Charlie at 12 years old, maybe being bullied in school. I could cry for that Charlie. But not for the Charlie that died that day. The Charlie who died for that died that day, I didn't have tears for him. But I had tears for the people who had to see it happen. You know? Yeah.
a couple months ago I was telling my wife, I felt uncomfortable being the only Mexican in a restaurant, and I shouldn't feel like that.
Immigrant families across the Chicago area are now dealing with the aftermath of the raids, including the family of Ricardo Aguayo Rodriguez, who was arrested by federal agents while riding his bike on a Sunday morning. A video of the incident went viral.
Can you tell me what happened to your brother?
My brother went to buy, this is his sister, something to eat at the market. And when, oops, sorry, hold on, it's going a little fast for me. And when he was on his way back, immigration was there. They knocked him off his bike, and they had him on the ground hitting him. He had two men on his chest, and they were choking him.
They punched him in the eye. They knocked his two front teeth out. You got severed collarbone.
This is the brother-in-law.
These two guys have to help him stand up, get to the bathroom. They can't move. They just destroyed this man for no reason. Absolutely 1,000% no reason. No man should get beat that bad or something he didn't do.
Do you know why ICE arrested him?
I think they got him because of the color of his skin, she says. Because they thought he looked Mexican.
Were you able to see him after the arrest?
No, we don't know how he's doing. Holy fuck. Horrible. They don't let us see him. He and I have always been together. And yeah, I'm scared I'll never see him again. Of course she's scared. I'm scared she'll never see him again. And I really, guys, I know why there's so much anger. And I'm not saying anger is, you need to be, some people aren't angry enough. Like, that's what's ironic, is sometimes I look at these MAGA people and I say, you know, you're so angry in the wrong direction. Can you please be angry in the right direction? Like, some of us aren't angry enough, right? And some of us are angry, too angry. Don't be bitter. Your anger should be justice, not bitterness. But of course she's terrified. You should be terrified that she might never see her brother again because this government decided to pick up a person off the road just because. She said, I hope there's justice for what they did. Because what they did to him wasn't right.
Rodriguez is currently in immigration detention in Oklahoma. Federal authorities claim he resisted arrest. They also say Rodriguez has prior convictions for assault, battery, and drug possession, though it's unclear if that's why he was targeted.
Watch out, we've pissed this guy off. He might switch lanes and brake check.
Yeah.
Hold on. Chat says, I'm wondering why the ability to cry for people who knowingly evoke mass destruction is even relevant. I think the better question is, should we? If we do that stuff, believe you forfeit community empathy. If you do that stuff, believe you forfeit empathy, community empathy. So this is a philosophy channel, right? Like, we do philosophy here. We are trying to humanize people and humanize ourselves. We're also trying to deconstruct the fact that we think we know why we exist and how we exist. And I think what we're trying to do is be a little less bad every day. So, you know, yes, I understand that people might see it as like trying to make excuses for the enemy or whatever. I don't have any enemies, first of all. That's number one. There are no such thing as enemies. There are only two people crossing paths. There are only two energies having a moment together. We have no enemies. The myth of an enemy was created by dominant forces who want to convince us that we should even have hate in our hearts to begin with. You can seek justice. You can do the right thing without being bitter or hateful or having enemies. You don't have to have an enemy to do something that's correct. And so I think there's like this idea, because we're raised under patriarchy, we're raised by violent cultures to believe that we must first have enemies to seek justice. When I say there's genocide in the Bible, you know, the story of Jericho, that story is so funny. Or even the story of the Pharaoh and the firstborn sons, right? Like, no matter what culture you come from around the world, generally speaking, the mass message we're all getting and receiving is like violence is a way for liberation, or violence is the answer. Self-defense is different. Liberation or violence when used for liberation is different, but I don't think we as a species have the discernment to know the difference. I don't think we're good enough to know the difference. I think we're not as good as we think we are, people, you know? So we need to be careful, but that doesn't mean, and this is very important, it doesn't mean you still don't do the right thing. This is from Tao Te Ching. Okay, this is like, you know, if you don't know Tao, that's okay. Tao Te Ching is just like, it's the book of the way. It's like a nice little Eastern philosophy look into another, like a look into the self and existence. And number 73 is courage and caution. It says, reckless courage leads to death. Cautious courage leads to life. These two things, courage and caution, must be balanced. The right thing at one time is the wrong thing at another. This is why the wise approach everything with both courage and caution. The Tao does not fight, yet it conquers. It makes no demands, yet it receives. It issues no summons, but things come to it naturally. The Tao's reach is vast indeed. It casts a wide net and loses nothing. I think human beings would be best served in this direction. Okay, you don't have to subscribe to anything. I don't follow a religion. It's just more like wisdom from the past into the future. Okay, so this is how I try to approach any topic that I'm covering. I try to say, I'm not a wise person. Maybe I'll die an unwise person. But in order to try, I have to see what the foundation of wisdom can look like. And it is this foundation of, okay, bring both of these things to the table. Have courage and use caution. Okay, so that's where I'm coming from, right? Okay. Put my little book away. Some people read the Bible, some people read the Tao, you know?
Do you want to open your window for me?
Some people read both.
We're legally allowed to
You need to stop following us, they said.
record.
Yeah, you can't follow us.
We can follow from a distance as long as we're recording.
18 USC 111.
No, I need to make physical contact with an officer or their car.
You're following us. Stop following us. You're impeding us.
We are not
We're not
impeding you.
impeding. We're just
Oh, did he recite like a citation at
contact with an
them? He like recited like a citation. They said, no, we know we're not breaking the law.
Officer or their car.
You're following us. Stop following us. You're impeding us.
We are not
we're not
impeding you.
impeding.
So you're impeding us, stop following us.
We're just recording. We're not.
I don't know if you guys can hear them because they're wearing fucking masks.
We're not impeding. We're recording. Okay.
Ben, have you gotten warnings like that before?
Yeah, I mean, they've boxed in our car and pulled us out of our car and held Sam against the door with his hands behind his back while they threatened to arrest us.
Hold on, chat. You need to clarify this comment you just left because I don't know why you left it. No, hold on. Oh, okay. Everybody sit down. Lock in. Everybody lock in. Okay. I'm not even the greatest person to have this conversation, but lock in. Chat said this is exactly why MLK Jr. was trying to say to Malcolm. You said Malcolm had a much more visceral desire to retaliate. It makes sense his family was killed by the KKK. His mother was institutionalized. MLK Jr. came more well-off family and was a pastor. Okay. This is a centrist take. Centrists hear me talk and they literally think, oh yeah, MLK over Malcolm X. Malcolm X was more right, but MLK was also believed in protest. MLK has been watered down by centrists and Republicans to be the no violence guy. Not true about MLK. Okay, MLK was not a no violence guy. That was the brand they gave. That's why they gave him a calendar date and Malcolm X didn't get one. But Malcolm X and MLK had different ways of engaging with protest, but they were on the same page. They were much more on the same page than people believe. Okay? You said I'm saying the message of peace. The message of peace is not the one you're hearing, though. If you heard the message I was giving, that shouldn't have been your comment. I'm saying that comment is not what I'm saying. I want to make it clear to my audience, to the people hearing me, especially the Black and brown people who are listening to me. I am not saying that. I am not saying that watered down version of MLK and peace is not what I am saying. Okay? Right? I want to make sure that people understand that, right? So I just, I want to make it clear that there is a way to move people forward and you have the right to defend yourself. Okay? You said I just watched the debate release, so it's on my mind. Ignore me, and I get it, right? I've watched those debates. I think they're great debates. You should watch the speeches. You should watch everybody. But again, when we have this conversation, we have to understand that both were incredibly perfect for the time they existed. Both died young. Don't even forget that too. Remember that they were both killed young, right? That's what's even crazier about this circumstance. Is they should not have even died when they died. They should be here right now as old men. They should be here right now as old fucking men. And they can't be. You know what I mean? So when we have these conversations, I just want to make sure, because I think this is, I want to make sure that when people come onto my channel, because I do think sometimes people think I'm a centrist because I'm talking about something past. I want to make it clear that coming from a philosophical perspective, I just want you to remember, okay? This is how I see the work that I do. Politics lives here and philosophy lives here. And the truth is there's this overlap in this bridge. And sometimes people confuse them. I want to make it clear that this whole thing where people say, people will say, you must have a peaceful protest for me to protect you. This is propaganda in the two bubble. Used to convince other people in two bubbles. This is my philosophical framework, right? That no matter how you show up, you will never be good enough. This is rhetoric used by two A's and two B's, okay? The two A's convince the two B's, and then the other two show up, and there's this whole issue about who's showing up proper in order to get dignity. You do not have to show up a particular way to be dignified. This is why they say, oh, Renee Good, she didn't show up dignified, so she gets killed. All these Black and brown people to get to show up dignified, they get to get killed. Who cares how old Tamir Rice was? He looked like he had a gun. Who cares how old Michael Brown was? He was a little rough that day. Who cares about any of these people? Okay, I'm saying we want to get past it. So here politics lives, here philosophy lives. I want you to get here, but I want you to know the Republicans here, the centrists are here, the liberals are here, the progressives are here. You still want to get progressive politically, but you also want to go beyond that. Feminism is a reaction to patriarchy. You don't want to be a feminist and stop learning. You want to deconstruct into more intersectional feminism, right? You want to go past that and go further eventually. You don't have to right now. Okay? Okay? So when we have these conversations, know that you're fighting propaganda and you're fighting a misunderstanding of what the overall message could be. Malcolm X, I always say this about Malcolm because I really like and I respect Malcolm a lot. People often ask me, Brittany, was Malcolm X a 5? Malcolm X did not have the privilege or ability and the responsibility he took up for his community to even think about himself outside of the earth itself, which is why he was a 2. But it's not because Malcolm X wasn't capable or smart enough. He died. He was murdered. He didn't even get the chance. He was busy focusing on building responsibility he had towards his community to do something. He picked a bubble. He called himself Malcolm X, right? He disowned the name of the enslavers, right? He did those things. I mean, you could look at Muhammad Ali did the same thing, right? Muhammad Ali refused to serve in Vietnam. He took a stand. The disowning of the names is a part of the process, right? But these individuals, Malcolm X in particular, he only had a chance and a time to think of himself in relation to the earth, in relation to his community. Like when I think about the levels and 5-ness, that is being able to even think of yourself as like existence into the universe. The reason he chose Islam was because it was the best thing he had in the moment. But I don't know if he would have died a Muslim, right? Like when we have these conversations, like there's a reason why Black communities, I do think, find a lot of solace within Islam. And I also do think that ultimately we want to move our communities, especially our male population, outside of that patriarchal construct. But that's what it was. You know, yes, he was born in Cassius Clay. Muhammad Ali was, exactly. That's why when people interviewed him, they'd be like, Cassius, Cassius. And he's like, stop calling me that. That's not my name. You know, that's not my name. So when we have these conversations, know that I am not saying, when I say to humanize MAGA, I'm not saying to humanize their movement or their thoughts or their beliefs. I think you are right to be cautious of white liberals. And I think you are right to be cautious of anybody who tries to humanize bigotry, which also extends to our communities, our people of color communities. It extends to all of us, every single one of us. When I meet people, one of the biggest memes in my household is the idea of like meeting people who say they aren't bigoted. Because one time I had a white man tell me like, oh yeah, I'm not bigoted. I was like, oh, you're not bigoted? You have no bias? And he was like, no, I have no bias. Like that's kind of a meme in this household of like, oh, really? Like just to exist on planet Earth and to think you do not have bias, just to be able to say to yourself, to live in a world where you could get to your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s and have the audacity and the ego to think that you have no bias, that you weren't raised under this system or weren't raised in a world that was patriarchal or bigoted or homophobic or transphobic, and to say that I have no bias, I have no bigotry, I somehow made it out alive. Like, absolutely not. Like, absolutely not. All of us have problems. But some people are more on the right side of history than others. And every time the group of people who are on the right side of history, they will always be the minority. They will always be away from the majority. This is why I say to question even your favorite leftists when they are popular, because why are you popular under white supremacy? Why are you popular in this world? What does that even mean? Okay? Okay? Yes, be kind to people, but be ruthless to systems. Exactly. Okay. So when Discord said, that's right, straight people have dead names also. There you go. We respect people's changed names, or at least we should, you know? Okay. You didn't derail the conversation, chat. You brought into focus something that I needed to correct as well, because I need to also, moving into 2026, make my stance very clear. I want to make my stance very, very clear about where I'm coming from, that this is not a safe space for pussyfooting around a very important topic, which is bigotry, which is the foundation brought on by fear and brought on by entitlement that moves and allows people to move through the world doing exactly what we're witnessing today. It is so fucking serious. It is the most serious thing in the whole world. I want no jokes this week because it is so fucking serious, and people died. They were murdered for it. Malcolm X and Martin Luther, they were murdered for trying to be on the right side of history. And we just so casually sit here today talking about, oh, well, you know, maybe if it was nicer and maybe if they just like said things better, and maybe if they just weren't so, aggressive, and maybe if we shouldn't even be having this conversation. Remember that they were murdered, okay? They were murdered, and they're murdered for the same thing we're still fighting for today, that minorities, black and brown people are still struggling with today. And now we have ICE raids happening where you're seeing it in front of your eyes. Stop saying, black content creators keep saying, you keep trying to say like, this is the Gestapo, this is Germany, this is America. This is the KKK, this is the police force running through black homes and taking fathers out of homes and imprisoning people and creating a system that we see today where we blame black families for not being able to get ahead in a country where they stop them at every turn. This is exactly America. And I'm saying, just so you understand where I am coming from, I am well aware that everything happening today is everything that's always happened in this country. And so we have to understand that. You know what I mean? We have to understand that. No, chat says liberal women are the most privileged class now. No, we still live under patriarchy, and white women will always still be victims of patriarchy. Do not allow patriarchy to convince you that white women are the most powerful, because that is not true. That white men still have the most privilege in this country, and we know this time and time again. So don't allow, okay, people to start thinking that that's true, that it's not true, especially if you're a white trans woman. Certainly not true, okay?
It's just empty threats. I mean, they definitely shake you up, but there's nothing they can really do with it. Yeah, they can still detain you, they can still arrest you, but if the charges don't stick, then that's kind of...
Yeah, chat, that's true. Hitler was inspired by Jim Crow South. He called it paradise. I did learn about that, where Hitler was inspired by America, where Hitler looked at us and thought, man, inspirational, bro. Remember that. Remember that. All these men in these positions of power looking at other positions of power and going, who can I learn from? You know?
Oh, it matters. Okay, they're here. We'll top out. Guys, they're here at college. They're here at college, the rebel truck. We're two white minors who have always had the privilege to live in America unbothered. With ICE...
Wait, his shirt said bombing kids is not self-defense. Honestly, based. Wow. Yeah. Ooh, chat says, to answer your question, the officer cited 18 USC 111, assaulting, resisting, or impeding certain officers, which of course does not cover recording from a reasonable distance. Thank you, chat. Appreciate that.
Who have always had the privilege to live in America unbothered. With ICE especially, I think it very...
And by the way, just process this information with me. I hope these kids keep deconstructing. There is a chance these kids could be conservative one day. That you see them doing this now, and this is amazing. Plenty of kids were born into liberal homes and became Trump voters. Plenty of liberal boys you went to college with who maybe did this for one summer, turned around and joined MAGA the next. Remember that.
Much changes how they think they can treat us.
White privilege definitely has an effect with how we're treated, and that's horrible, but I'm gonna use that privilege that shouldn't be here and do the right thing.
Ben and Sam come from a family of 8 kids.
Mom, can I watch on the TV?
The Lumens are devout Anglican Christians who see resisting Trump's immigration crackdown as an extension of their faith.
Oh.
Do you ever worry about them out having all these encounters with law enforcement?
Yeah, I worry. Absolutely. I'm tracking them on my phone all the time throughout the day. At the same time, I've had to come to realize that a lot of my immigrant and...
I'm going to go ahead and mute this person. Okay, White Pill Radio, your band. They're like, so white men are in charge? ? Girl, go back to class. You can come back here in 5 years when you've read a book.
Risk for being racially profiled neighbors and the people around Chicago have to worry every single day of their lives with their kids. Not just during Operation Midway Blitz, but this is ongoing. In America, it is not safe to be an immigrant right now, and maybe hasn't been for a long time. If they have to carry this day after day, why should my life be normal? Why should my family get to be safe and comfortable and go on about our days and just ignore what's happening?
We're not sure if our kids are going to be safe, but at the same time, we're incredibly proud with what they're doing. People are being actively hunted.
This is a testing ground, Chicago as a city, for Trump's vision of what ICE and Customs and Border Patrol could do in lots of cities around the United States. They are testing our resistance, and we are also learning ourselves and trying to formulate what does peaceful resistance look like. All right, guys.
Lord, we give you thanks for this day and this food. And God, we pray that you would obstruct the work of ICE. Lord, that you would soften hearts and that they would change their ways. We pray this in Christ's name. Amen.
Yeah, this goes back to like meeting people in the middle. I don't think Christianity is a religion of liberation. I think it is a religion of subjugation. It's why Black churches that still support Jesus are so interesting. And again, it's not my place to speak on Black communities like that, but it feels like this, just a reminder, like, I've heard this from Black creators, right? Like the same God that your enslavers prayed to and thanked them for this bounty were the same ones you were praying to while you were enslaved. And that will never not be such a testament to how evil Christianity can be, and is fundamentally even like I say this as I have my Bible right here, girlies. Okay, I get it. I got my little Bible too, but I also know that this holy book, okay, this holy book. What does it even mean to be a holy book? You know? So I do call into question all people. And I know this is where somebody would say, Brittany, we have to build bridges. And Brittany, they're still doing good things. And yeah, sure. But I really hope that these people, Bible jump scare, chat, funny. I still believe, like, so now the question is, how do you feel about gay or trans people? I'm so glad you're fighting ICE. How do you feel about gay and trans people? And you might say you'll never be happy, not as long as bigotry is a part of your foundation. No. As long as your belief system, your framework has bigotry woven in, no, I will not be satisfied. But I still wish the best for you, and I want to support you and get you housing and healthcare and, you know, everything you need. But yeah, no.
Trump's immigration raids show no signs of slowing down and are poised to expand and intensify over the coming months. ICE's budget is set to triple in 2026, making it the highest funded law enforcement agency in the country.
Jesus Christ.
But communities continue to push back. In the Chicago suburbs, people gather weekly outside the Broadview ICE facility to protest the raids.
So religious leaders are pushing past the police barricades here and trying to get closer to the ICE facility and immediately getting arrested by police.
Everybody that we see get arrested comes here. The conditions in there are horrible. They're not given enough water. They're given one sandwich a day for food. They have over 100 people in 20 by 20 foot rooms. Not enough room to sleep on, no beds, no showers. The tube showers in the facility are broken and used as storage. It's inhumane and it's horrible and it's disgusting. And that's why there's protesters here.
It's ICE. It's them.
There's so many agents out there. We just need numbers of people out there keeping an eye on our neighbors.
You can film all you want. Just get back. You start interfering, I'll arrest you.
I'm not interfering. I'm just filming.
If enough of us got in the street and said enough is enough, this is evil, and we need to see people for who they are and not quotas to fill, then this would stop, and people could live again. See you the next one. We'll see you at the next one.
He said, we'll see you at the next one. In response to the allegations about conditions at the Broadview ICE facility, the Department of Homeland Security has said the following. Despite what's this? Hoaxes? What's SIC, guys? What's that mean? Spread by criminal illegal aliens, the complicit media, and now an activist judge. The ICE Broadway facility does not have a subprime condition. Yes, it does. What does SIC mean again? All detainees are provided with 3 meals a day, water, and have access to phones and communicate with their family members and lawyers. Oh, yeah? Then why has this girl not heard from her brother? SIC means they misspelled it in the quote. Oh, okay. Oh, hoaxes. I was going to say, okay. Okay, now what I want us to do, oopsies, poopsies, hold on. Hello. Okay. What I want us to do is, hold on here. Okay. Okay, now look at this. Okay.
It's a little weird that so many of you are using your one shot at existence to rip families apart over imaginary lines drawn on the ground, instead of focusing on the fact that we evolved from microbes at the bottom of the ocean and now none of us can afford to live here. Go outside, stare at the moon, and try again.
There's like this, you know, part of like this, like almost like other part of reminders, like, yo, with your one time on earth, this is what you're doing with it, bro. And that is really hard to process. I think it is really hard to process. You know, is well, I think that's kind of the idea of like God, though. I think God is like this away, like, okay, I was having a conversation with my partner the other day where we were really again, because we do this pretty frequently, just really recognizing that we're going to die, right? Like really sitting with it, letting our bodies feeling it, letting my body feel it. And of course, it's not exactly death itself, right? At least not for me. I'm not really afraid of what happens after death. Like I don't think anything happens. It's just the fact that one day I'll never hear this person's laugh. I'll never smell their smell. I won't be able to come home and talk to this person. Like the fear of death is really just accepting that you'll have to move on from having a direct and constant connection with somebody that you love, whether it's a sister or brother. The other day, on my day off, I had a movie date with two of my siblings, and we were just laughing so hard together. And it was the 3 gay siblings all came together, and all of us were just like laughing and like, we were just like, oh my God, we have to do this more. And just seeing us all together on the screen, it was such a nice feeling because especially since I live in a different country than my siblings, I don't get to see anyone. And it's been a while, obviously, since I've seen like my brother. It's been like 3 years or whatever. And, and I want to go home and visit. But to be honest, I'm a little scared I won't be able to come back. So I don't want to risk it. And that sucks. Like I feel so privileged in many ways because I am white and all these things. And yet a part of me is like worried that if I go back to visit my family, that I won't somehow get to come back. And then that will be horrible because I'll be separated from my partner. And then that will be an extra layer of horrible. And I don't want to risk it. But at the same time, I know how privileged I am also in this position because it's like weird. It's like this weird thing where, I just don't feel safe enough going to America. And also Europe has put out a travel warning, like for queer people not to go to America. So I'm like, I don't want to risk that. And I'm already outspoken as it is on the internet. And what if they what if they take my phone and see all my Trump memes? And then what if they see what if they find out I'm a YouTuber? And then it's like one thing after another, right? So I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm willing to risk it just to see my family, even though I love them and I want to see them. All these things play a role. But also, what also plays a role is the fact that I am privileged enough to have the internet, and I'm privileged enough to have conversations with them, and I'm privileged enough to really radically accept and believe that I am just like a little organism on the planet. I know a lot of people don't think that, right? I know a lot of people really think like a God put them here, or they're destined to be here, or their universe is like, I don't know what you believe. But what you believe is very important. It's not even what you know, it's what you believe. Like what you believe is very important. It sets into motion everything you do after that. So really, this lady, she's so funny, right? She's telling us what she believes.
Frankly, I find it a little weird that so many of you are using your one shot at existence to rip families apart over imaginary lines drawn on the ground, instead of focusing on the fact that we evolved from microbes at the bottom of the ocean and now none of us can afford to live here.
She's like, but see, that's the thing is like, even though we find it funny, and I'd agree with her, a lot of people don't believe that. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people don't believe that at the end of the day. And that's the thing. And by the way, every time I've gone through an airport, I've been pulled over by TSA. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to risk it. Like almost every time I've gone somewhere, TSA has done an extra swap on me. I've had to stay behind. Even when I came to Europe. When I came to Europe with Indiana, they pulled me aside and gave me an extra security, whatever. And I have a feeling it's my last name. That's what I think it is. So that's probably what it is, more or less, right? Like it probably sets off some weird flag because it's a weird fucking name. It's not the name I have on the internet, in case people don't realize that by now. But like, which would make sense, whatever. So it's one of those things where I just want to take the risk. But I also understand too at the same time that we're all sharing this planet together, And so we're gonna come in contact with one another. You know how all these men who are progressives, they do this thing, they do the evolutionary biology, psychology rift, and they're like, our ancestors 5,000 years ago, how does this play into God? Right? Like, how does that play into God? Oh, our ancestors, da 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 da. How does this play into your pipeline to alt-right Christianity? How does your bubble talk about God and demons and a fight for good, and then bigotry is your choice? Like, I was thinking about Jordan Peterson the other day, how Jordan Peterson, goes through this whole like crisis of like fighting demons and fighting self, and he wants to be on the right side of history. And he's talking about how deadly serious things are, you know, like deadly serious things are. And then he goes, and then he retweets the lady on the Sports Illustrated cover and goes, sorry, not beautiful. Oh man, I'm fighting real demons over here, but also I gotta tell fat girls they're ugly. First of all, she's not even ugly, so nice try. And second of all, could you imagine being like, life is so serious? Also, I gotta retweet this. Hold on, give me a second. I wish people were more serious about being serious. Like when I say I just want to have a serious conversation with you, please be so serious. It is not serious to retweet fat people and make fun of people for being fat. That's not serious. That's so stupid. Who cares if somebody's fat? Like, you're being so unserious, you know? It's that planet. We share planet with everybody. And that's the point. You know? Yeah, it's unserious behavior. It's so unserious. Chet says, wait, I'm curious why Simon is your last name. So when I was coming out of high school, I graduated in 2007. My dad comes to me, for those of you who don't know my story, my dad comes to me. We're Assyrian. My parents are immigrants from Iraq. My whole family is immigrants. Okay, I was born in America. I was born in California. And my name is Brittany. My parents, my dad looked at me. He named me Jacqueline for the first 3 days of my life. And then he goes, nah, her name is Brittany. I was like, thanks, Dad. Thanks for giving me the fucking whitest name anyone's ever had in their life. Anyways, so my parents, my dad comes to me and goes, there's this girl on the internet named iJustine. He goes, you should be like her. iJustine used to do tech interviews. Okay. Chat says you're 37, disgusting. Ew. I'll be 37 in May. Yeah, I'll be 37 in May. So he goes, you should be like iJustine. And I was like, iJustine, she does like tech interviews. She's a YouTuber. He goes, you should be a YouTuber. I was like, oh, a YouTuber? Because I was going to be a radio host. I was going to go for radio. And I was like, oh, a YouTuber. So we sat down as a family and I said, well, what should my name be on YouTube? And he goes, well, you probably shouldn't use the family last name because it is, you know, it's a weird last name. And, you know, we want to separate what I'm doing here with my life and you. And I said, that's smart. I don't want to bring my family into stuff. You know, I just want to be my own person. So I was going to be Brittany Aziz. That was going to be my name. That's my grandpa's name. But I went with Brittany Simon because that's my other great grandpa's name. Because my grandpa, who he's dead now. All my grandparents are dead now. He, at the time, was alive, and we didn't want to use his name as, like, my opinions, because my parents knew I was going to be a liberal. They just knew. At the time, I was, like, conservative, but they knew I was going to be a liberal. My dad said, well, in the future, I have a feeling you're going to have opinions that are offensive to this family. So why don't you choose a name for somebody who's already dead? And so we chose my great-grandfather. And so I'm Brittany Simon. That's my great-grandfather's name. And I've been Brittany Simon since. And it's my name. Like, it's my name. It's what it's what I've gone by since I was 18. So 18 years I've been Brittany Simon. Yeah. You know? Yeah, we support name changes here. We support names. Yeah. So for those who don't know my story, that's my story. Yeah. You know? But I did, yeah, Chad says, that's so sweet. I love the story of your dad suggesting you be a YouTuber. Hey, I'll say this about my parents. My dad got me my first digital camera. My dad suggested I be a YouTuber. My parents are very proud of me for being a YouTuber. They're not proud of the work I do, but they're very proud of the fact that I became what I set out to do. You know? Yeah. So Chad says, do you have a middle name? It's my grandmother's name. My middle name is Sarah. It's my grandmother's name. Yeah. So sometimes you'll see me reference, I'm all about the S's in this family. Yeah. My middle name is Sarah. So it's my great grandma's name as well. Yeah. Our family is very like family names, you know, though I guess the boys are mostly religious, kind of religious-y names, but the girls got grandma's middle names. And yeah, a little lore there, you know. Chess says, I never questioned it, but it makes so much sense why there's two first names. Some people have those names. Like, some people do have, like, John Jason or something. They do have, like, two first names. But, yeah, one time I met somebody, a YouTuber, and he was like, Brittany Simone. And I said, Brittany who? He goes, Simone. I was like, there's no E at the last name. There's no E at my last name. And he's like, oh, I thought it was Brittany Simone. I was like, it's Brittany Simon. You know? It was just kind of funny. Jess says, is your sister's name Courtney? Stop. They named Brittany and Courtney. Listen, it's not Courtney, but I'll just tell you this. Like, being called Brittany, okay, so my family's nickname for me is Bert. They also don't, like Brittany, they call me Bert. So my uncle started calling me Bert when I was a kid because he'd say, hey, Bert, where's Ernie? And then my family started calling me Bert. And in high school, I went by Bert because every girl named Brittany was just like a white cheerleader and a popular girl. And I was like, what the fuck is this? So I was like, call me Bert. And then Bert is just my name. So people just call me Bert in my family as well. Like, they don't really call me Brittany, you know? I mean, they do, but they mostly call me Bert, you know, B-E-R-T, Bert, you know? So it's also kind of funny, like, what is a name? Like, what are names? Or my parents don't even call me, but my parents call me Batsy. They call me my daughter. You know what I mean? So when we have like these conversations about what is a name and what does it all mean? I mean, there you go. That's the lore. I just dropped it. You know? Yeah. B-E-R-T, Bert. You know, do they call your partner Ernie? They call my partner nothing because I don't talk to my partner. No. Ernie's my gay lover, as you guys know, you know. I just think it's like, it's cool to know the family history. It's cool that my dad encouraged me to be a YouTuber. Like, all of that is cool. I love all of that. I love my origin story. I love how supportive my parents have always been, even though they hate the work that I do. But also, because they hate the work that I do, they can't be fully supportive, you know? But it, you know, that's why I say, you know, that this, okay, this brings me to, this is what I want to close stream on. We'll be back tomorrow. Don't worry. This is what I want to close stream on. So remember, we live in a world in which we have our own families. Okay, no, let me draw it like this. We have our families, and our families, they have problems. Like, I have problems in my family, guys, like real problems. Okay. You know, we got problems in this family. Okay. And that family exists on planet Earth with everybody else's families. Okay? And all of our families interact with each other and overlap with each other and, you know, road rage at each other and fight each other. But everyone's family is just as valuable as my family. Okay? When you're in a freeway and you're driving with all these cars, and you see all these families and all these cars, they're not just cars, they're people. They're people who are having a life just as important as yours. And so when you see these ICE agents pick up people or shoot people dead, they're shooting somebody's family member. You need to remember that, because we live in a country that just objectifies people. We live in a country that dehumanizes people. We live in a country that calls us a quota, you know? We're not just numbers on a paper, even though we're numbers on a paper. We are so much more than numbers on a paper. You know? And so when we have this conversation, I just want you to remember everything inside of yourself. You want to have a good relationship with everything inside of yourself, with my why. Why do I feel this way? Why do I think this way? Why do I show up this way? And your relationship with everything outside of yourself. Why do they act this way? Why do they think this way? Why do they do what they do? And what does that have to do with me? Because we overlap. Okay? We exist individually, and we exist as a collective, and we exist together. This whole idea that everybody wants a village and no one wants to be a villager, it's really hard to be a villager when everybody's a fucking white supremacist. It's hard to want to be a villager in a village where everyone's homophobic and transphobic. It's hard to be a part of this village. And so, you know, we don't just exist within ourselves. We also exist within the construct of everything around us. Actually, let me see if I can pull up one more TikTok. Hold on. Let me see if I can pull up this one last TikTok. Hold on. Let me see if I can find it really fast. If TikTok will load. Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can find it really fast. Worst case, we can cover it tomorrow, but let me see if I can find it really fast. Do-do-do-do. 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 Oh, her.
I'm going to hold your...
I just found this person, so I'm not vouching for them. I'm not vouching for anybody. I don't know any of these people. I just saw this TikTok and I thought it was interesting. This is a therapist. It says, friendship is a choice, community is a shared responsibility. What do you think about this?
I'm going to hold your hand when I say this. Your community is not your friend group, and your friend group is not your community. Friends are people that we choose to have in our lives. Our community is a shared responsibility because we literally share an identity, whether it's because we're in the same location, we have the same race, ethnicity, we have the same values, or we share in survival. This is important. Your community is going to have people in there that you don't like, that you don't align with, that you genuinely can barely stand. And guess what? You're in community together, and our survival is dependent on being in community together. So if you don't like people, if people like your feelings get hurt, that's community. That is okay. This is a fair expectation to have, because hello, look at Minnesota. Do you think every single person that is out there in the streets marching together, all of them agree on everything and like each other entirely? No, they are in community because their survival is depending on it. And they are putting aside all of the differences, right? All of the, like, maybe we don't like each other kind of vibes and we wouldn't be friends otherwise, aside for community. On the other hand, I see a lot of people burn their friends out real bad because they are using their friend groups as community, meaning they're using them as like mutual aid networks, and that isn't possible. Like, that is not a friend group kind of expectation or structure that we can have. It's friends. Community is where we focus on the infrastructure, right? All of the larger, bigger things that contribute to our ability to actually meet our needs, and then we can just have friends, right? Like, it's different. Our friends are not those people that we can rely on like community. Our friends can be in community, right, with us amongst other people, but that's not our community, like, full stop, period. It can't be. So this, like, if we're getting lessons out of Minnesota, which I hope we are, because hello, like, we're next, let's see this. Friendship is chosen intimacy, and that's great. Community is shared responsibility, and that's also great. Both matter. We just really want to have the distinction between the two, because we need to lean into community right now way more than we need to like building rainbows and butterflies and sunshines kind of friendships, right? Like, we don't have to be besties. We do have to be in community together, though. I'm gonna hold your hand.
Okay, so I think there's something here that's good and something here that's kind of bad in my mind. I do agree there is a distinction between community and chosen family and close friends. Like, I'm a part of the Croatian community because I physically exist here, right? We participate, we engage in local activities, we do whatever we're gonna do here because this is my community, right? I think about, if I see litter, if I see bad neighborhood activity, like I am of a community here. And I have a community here on the internet. And I have a community with America because I am an American. And so, like, community to me is the group of people that I am grouped in with. I have community with women, community with queer people, community with Assyrians. Like, ultimately, I think your community is sort of like how people externally place you and where you find yourself. So it's a little bit of both. Then there's like chosen family, like people that you are maybe closer to and have a certain level of community with, but not always. Like, there are siblings that I don't talk to, but are closer to me and more important to me than someone I could even be in community with. Because, like, I intimately love my family in a way that is like significantly my chosen friends, my chosen family. I love them significantly in a way that's different than I love strangers, but yet maybe I might be in community more with my neighbors or with some of my social friends more than a sibling I haven't talked to in 5 years. And again, I think this is why I say, yes, we have to come together to protest, even with people we disagree with. And we still need to make sure that the people we're protesting side by side with aren't also relying on the hope that after this is over, they can go back to being bigoted. Like, I'm happy to protest ICE with you, but also when this is over, in quotation marks, you don't get to go home and just be like, the gays, am I right? Like, so there has to be the difference here between when we build bridges and link arms, when we hold people accountable, and also who we're inviting, to live in the direct village after this is all over. Because I think this is why people get annoyed with leftists. The comment on this video here, video subtitle, why Seattle leftists can't actually build community, too busy with purity tests and interviewing people for the polycule. First of all, it's a little funny as somebody who was poly in Seattle for many years. It's a little funny. Also, bad. No, because at the end of the day, I can agree that some people, for their own reasons, quote, won't build community with others, but often it's really scary to build community with people that you're inviting into your house or into your friend group that you vouch for, and then they turn out to be a predator or bigoted. Like, that's really scary, you know? So, you know, yeah, Chad goes, it's a little funny. I mean, it's a little funny, but also, and this is why I'm critical of Hassan or other people. Look, I think we're all playing a role. Look, I think Hassan has to platform these MAGA podcasters, and then I have to complain that he did it. I think that's our role. My role is to be like, boo! And his role is to be like, do you like actually like communism though? If I say it a different way, do you like actually like it though? And then my job is to be like, boo, you know? But someone else's job is to say like, I don't like the way Brittany said that. My job is to be like, you know, our job is to all play a role at the same time that like moves us forward. Okay? And we're all doing our part. That's the thing. We are. I think overall Hassan does better work than bad work. But that doesn't mean I'm not gonna have a problem. He is still a man at the end of the day. And I also, you know, again, I think we have to be careful with who we think community is and what community is. This also goes back to your friends playing therapist. Okay? Your friends are not your therapists. Medical professionals are therapists. So, you know, be careful who you're turning into a therapist. Your partner is not your therapist. A therapist is a therapist. Okay? So we have to think about that. Chad says he also seems very into consumerism. Oh, that's one thing I don't like about him the most. It's so bad for the planet. I'm waiting for him to also, you know, think about that, but that's okay. His pace is his pace. Listen, everyone's on a journey. Everybody has a different relationship with these things, but he is not, well, the future in my mind, the future is plant-based and less overconsumption, but we're not going to get there overnight and everybody's getting there at their own pace. I just started plant-based. I just started really questioning my overconsumption. So I get it, right? It's all a journey. I'm older than Hassan. It would make sense. But I hope he goes in that direction because he's got such a large microphone. It'd be great. But I don't want him to do it because it's fake. I want him to do it because he's having a real relationship with self and that it's like a real change he's had. Like he has a real like, oh shit, that's wrong. I shouldn't do that. Versus placating his audience. I don't want him to do that. You know, that's not good. Chess says, what about if your friends start treating you like a community and you lose that chosen energy, just orbit after a while? Well, I think there is a difference between like every individual friend deserves individual relationship with you. All my friends I treat differently. None of my friends or family or siblings are treated the same. Every single person is valuable and gets treated custom. I have custom relationships and friendships with every person in my life, and I highly recommend it. I highly recommend stop lumping all your friends into a group and start actually treating every single individual as a custom relationship. And then you will be able to custom apply rules to each person based off of who they are, how they show up, and how the relationship is. Also, relationships end, they come and go. Even very close inner circle, you know, think of it as a guild. You guys watch JJK? If you have a ghetto and a gojo and you guys deviate so aggressively on values, the love and unconditional connection doesn't go away, but it might come down to us fighting, right? So you have to think about that too, you know? Right. Chet said group dynamics are so terrible, really hard as an introvert. The groupthink is inevitable. I don't know. I feel I'm like a pretty introverted person. I would say that I think what's helped me is philosophy and mental health stuff, but also like my why. Maybe that will help you. I think I agree that, you know, I tend to vibe with whoever I'm around. I can definitely like change shape, but I think going back to your values and who you are can be helpful. So I see that, right? You know? Yeah. Chet says he still won't get his autism diagnosis because he said some things are better left unknown. I mean, the man won't even go to therapy. So you want to heal the world from patriarchy? Start getting men into therapy. That's what I think it's funny about Hassan saying like, oh, I'm going to get men from the right to come over to the left, but you won't go to therapy? Come on now. Come on now. It's so funny. But I think that's so white of him because I've seen so many Black content creators start talking about going to therapy. And I was like, of course. Like a lot of people of color have been openly advocating for therapy. Asian Americans, like, you know, because they're like, you should go to therapy. And of course, it's like the overconsumption white boy who's not going to therapy. I'm like, come on. That's such a stereotype. But what do you do? hey, everyone's on a journey, you know? Also, like I said, he probably doesn't want to weaponize his enemies. Because the moment I got my autism diagnosis, okay, so first the boys started weaponizing my BPD against me as if I'm not in remission, as if I'm not literally so good at like DBTing this life. And then they were like, oh, well, we can't go after her BPD. Now it's her autism. Let's go after her autism. It's like, look, you're enemies, even though you don't have any. People will choose to make you the enemy. The truth is like, you got to do it for you. You have to find out the answers. You don't have to share with the public, by the way, but you should find out for you how your brain works. This goes back to the beginning of stream, being a whole human being. How does your brain work and why? How does your brain work and why? You know? Yeah, that's what I think is important. Also, I just realized I don't have group friends. I should probably say that for people who are new to my audience. I'm so autistic. I don't have group friends. My relationship with people is very one-on-one. Like, I do not have group friends. I tried group dynamics. They never work out because group dynamics are very, very hard to make happen. And especially since in every group dynamic I've ever had, it's either been very shallow and very fun, which is great, or we've tried to get deeper, but that naturally separates the group. Because when you get to know people, you're like, uh-oh, like, we're not as aligned as I thought. It's hard to get a group of people in like aligned in values. It's really hard to get like 10 people together that agree on life, you know, unless you meet at a certain event or something. And then how deep can the relationship be? And then is my relationship only predicated on shared values? I want my friendships to be more than what we have in common, but I also appreciate my friendships that are mostly just what we have in common. But I think generally I'd like to really love you as a consciousness in order to have a more deeper relationship with you. Even if it's not inner circle, like come find you in a zombie apocalypse, I would still like to value the consciousness that is my friends, you know? So, you know, Chet says people are naturally drawn to other individuals, so it's going to get cliquey. It does. It does. And I know I keep seeing all this content about like friend groups and do friend groups exist? The focus should be, do I as a consciousness have shared value with you as a consciousness? And as long as we have that mutual shared enjoyment of each other, I hope this lasts. And when we're done, I hope we can separate on good terms. Because that's the other part of it that I think isn't so important. You got to let your friends break up with you. You got to let your siblings break up with you. You got to let your parents break up with you. People aren't obligated to stay in your life. But then how much more special is it that they're not obligated to stay in your life? They just really want to be there. How wonderful is that to be chosen for the time that is good for both of you? To say, I choose you today, I choose you tomorrow, I choose you until it's no longer good for us, I choose you. That's kind of nice, no? With that said, I am choosing to leave stream now. Okay, please take care of yourselves. You know, treat yourselves with kindness, do some meditation, and I will see you again tomorrow. We're going to cover Palestine and stuff like that. So it's going to be a heavy one. You know how I feel about Palestine. I tend to cry. I tend to be a baby because it's so sad. And it's really still happening. And that's the part that's so hard. It's like, it's still happening. It's still happening. It's still happening. It's still happening. They're still doing it. This ceasefire was bullshit. Everything's bullshit. People are dying. It's really bad. So we're going to talk about stuff like that. We're going to talk about Sudan. We're going to talk about stuff tomorrow. Okay. I'm going to come with a lot of video, probably going to get demonetized. So like the stream. Okay. See you tomorrow. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Good questions today, guys. Bye.